October 15th. Richard Johnson went to prison, sentenced to 20 years. He was nearly 50. By the time he got out, he'd be 70. Prison was a dog-eat-dog world, and it was uncertain if Richard Johnson, accustomed to a life of luxury, would even survive. Even if he were fortunate enough to make it out alive, the outside world would have undergone earth-shattering changes in those 20 years. Following his imprisonment, the details of his various crimes were reported online by the police, hitting the Twitter trends that very day. On October 20th, the Johnson Group declared bankruptcy, its assets liquidated and auctioned off. William had thought that entering the Johnson family, being adopted by Richard Johnson, meant stepping into high society, where no one would look down on his status anymore. Aunt Margaret had even promised him the Johnson family trust. As soon as they died, the vast Johnson fortune would be his. It turned out to be wishful thinking. He hadn't expected the Johnson family to go bankrupt in just a few short days. He went to check the Johnson family mansion. It had already been seized, the housemaids long gone. As for the corporate headquarters, it was a massive building, and there were people inside, but far more waited outside, creditors and former employees demanding unpaid wages. There was no hope of getting anything back. After all, the boss was in prison. Technically, the Johnson family's bankruptcy shouldn't have had much to do with him. It was just that his initial hopes had been so high, the disappointment of getting nothing left him feeling bitter. William was good at convincing himself, though. The Johnson family was gone, but he had married Amelia, becoming a Harper family son-in-law. He still wouldn't lack resources or money. He was countless times better off than before. The only trouble was Sophia Thompson. She had just given birth when she saw the news about the Johnson family's bankruptcy. Now, Sophia was giving him hell, constantly calling and texting, always asking the same things. The Johnsons are bankrupt. Will you divorce Amelia and marry me? You said you'd be with me once you got the Johnson family trust. Now the family's gone. Will you still keep your promise? William, when are you coming to see your son? Do you love me? Why aren't you answering my calls? Why aren't you replying to my texts? William, don't think I won't take our son and go find Ms. Harper. William had developed an almost conditioned dread of Sophia Thompson. Every time he saw her name pop up on his phone, his emotions went on a roller coaster, terrified that Amelia would find out something. He had considered dealing with Sophia, getting her out of the picture, but hadn't found the right opportunity. The original plan was to take her to the Hamptons estate. Fewer people there, easier to act. But Sophia had inexplicably changed her mind, absolutely refusing to go. After giving birth, she checked into a postpartum care center, with William footing all the bills. William was genuinely scared Amelia would find something out, so he hadn't dared to make any rash moves. Then, just 3 days after the Johnson Group declared bankruptcy, a group of people, accompanied by the police, showed up looking for him. The reason? He had apparently signed some kind of legal representative agreement. Now that the Johnson family was in trouble, he was saddled with their debt. The exact amount hadn't been calculated yet, but it definitely wouldn't be less than $1. $5 billion. $1. $5 billion. After all his years working in Hollywood, taking countless jobs, he hadn't even earned $100 a million. Now, out of nowhere, he owed this astronomical sum. He couldn't repay it, even if he sold himself. When William heard the news, his vision went black, and he nearly fainted. He was completely dazed, unsure of who he was, where he was, or what was happening. I didn't sign anything. When did I sign as a legal representative? He wasn't an idiot. He knew you couldn't just casually sign agreements like that. If problems arose, the legal representative was the first to be held responsible. William refused to admit he'd signed it, until they produced the document. Look here, isn't this your handwriting? You even put your thumbprint. Don't try to deny it. William suddenly remembered. After he and Amelia got engaged, he had spent a couple of days staying with the Johnsons, keeping Aunt Margaret company. Aunt Margaret had been distraught, almost hysterical daily, because of Richard Johnson's affairs. That night, she had pulled out a thick stack of documents, urging him to sign, saying she wanted to leave the Johnson family trust to him. Blinded by the unexpected windfall, he hadn't checked carefully. He'd merely glanced at it, confirmed it looked like an asset transfer, and started signing and pressing his thumbprint. After signing, he had fantasized constantly, wishing Aunt Margaret would die quickly so he could inherit the fortune. Not only did he not inherit anything, but he was now burdened with enormous debt. These debts felt like a crushing mountain, squeezing the breath out of him. People say you learn best the hard way, often in one painful lesson. But this price was far too steep. There was simply no way he could repay this debt. His current regret was as immense as his initial anticipation had been. William was sick with regret, kicking himself. If he could go back in time, he'd slap his past self senseless. William scrambled to explain. I honestly didn't know what I was signing. I was tricked. But outsiders only recognized what was written in black and white. Since he had signed, he had to bear the legal responsibility. If they let him off just because he claimed ignorance, what was the point of the law? Lately, Benjamin Harper and Amelia were overwhelmed dealing with issues related to Harper Tower. William absolutely didn't dare tell them about his own mess. He was terrified that their barely begun marriage would instantly turn into a divorce. Benjamin Harper was purely mercenary. He discarded anything or anyone that offered him no benefit. Since the Johnson family's bankruptcy, Benjamin already looked down on William. If he found out William owed $5 billion, he'd surely kick him out immediately. As for Amelia, before the wedding, there might have been some lingering affection from their past. But now that they were married, she barely spoke to him. The marriage felt like widowhood. William refused to admit he'd signed the papers, no matter what. He decided to visit Aunt Margaret, hoping to find some way out. The Springfield Mental Health Center, where Aunt Margaret was confined, wasn't much different from a prison. Visiting required going through procedures. When William saw Aunt Margaret, he almost didn't recognize her. Her head was shaved bald, her face bruised and swollen. One of her eyes had been blinded by Richard Johnson, making her look at people askance. Aunt Margaret was clearly traumatized by the beatings. She trembled uncontrollably at the slightest disturbance, curled up on the bed, muttering deliriously, "Don't hit me. I was wrong." William had seen pictures online of Aunt Margaret's pitiful state, but the photos couldn't compare to the reality. In person, she was far worse off. She couldn't even manage basic needs like eating, drinking, or using the toilet without assistance. This facility was clearly no Mayo Clinic. No one was taking proper care of her. Even before getting close, William caught the foul stench of feces and urine. How proud and arrogant Aunt Margaret had once been, the beautiful, elegant Mrs. Johnson, to end up like this. For her, it was surely a fate worse than death. A look of disgust crossed William's face, and the stench drove him back. Suppressing a gag, he put on a mask before forcing himself to re-enter the room. William had consulted a lawyer. The only path forward now was to get Aunt Margaret to admit she had tricked him into signing those documents. He'd still face legal consequences, but it might at least lessen the severity. William secretly visited the Springfield Mental Health Center. Aunt Margaret Johnson was clearly unwell. Her speech was fragmented and made no sense. Anyone sane would lose their mind in a place like this. Sometimes, William genuinely wanted to kill her. After pressing her for answers repeatedly, Aunt Margaret finally snapped back to lucidity and recognized him. "William, what are you doing here? Please get me out of here. I can't take it anymore. I'm going crazy. My dear godson, you're like a son to me. If you take me out of here, I'll give you the entire Johnson family trust. And Richard Johnson? I want to call the police on him. He's the one who hurt me and dumped me in this godforsaken place. He belongs in prison." William listened, increasingly impatient. If there weren't people watching outside, he would have poured boiling water on her already. The pressure he was under felt like a spring wound too tight. He was on the verge of a breakdown. Angry, irritable, and filled with violent thoughts, William looked at Aunt Margaret like she was already dead. Seizing the moment while she was still lucid, William pulled out a copy of document and shoved it in her face. "Why did you trick me into signing this?" Aunt Margaret squinted at it with one eye, feigning ignorance. "Didn't you sign it willingly? I left my estate to you. Shouldn't you give me something in return? You signed as the legal representative of your own free will. I didn't force you. You didn't force me, but you deceived me. I had no idea that agreement was in those documents." William's eyes were bloodshot with rage, his entire body trembling. Startled by his sudden outburst, Aunt Margaret shrank back. Her instinct screamed that William was dangerous. "I'm mentally ill. Everyone knows that. You think I could trick someone like you? Be serious. You signed because you wanted the Johnson fortune. She might be crazy, but she wasn't stupid." William became her godson out of greed, for money, status, and power. She'd seen enough people in her life to know exactly what he was. Selfish, greedy, a spineless simp. Giving him the inheritance? Sure, but only if he was lucky enough to actually survive it. Back then, she had him sign the legal responsibility agreement so she could control him. As her son, his wins and losses would be hers too. If anything went down, no one would walk away clean. She learned that from Ethan Johnson. She hadn't bound him legally, and he slipped away. As Aunt Margaret rambled, her mind grew sharper. "You say I tricked you? Then show me the proof. It's all there in black and white. You signed it, even stamped your fingerprint. You're a celebrity. You expect people to believe you didn't know what you were signing. Before she could finish, William grabbed the electric kettle from the cabinet and hurled it at her. He didn't want to touch her. Too disgusting. The lid popped open midair, and scalding water spilled directly onto Aunt Margaret's neck. She let out a shriek, louder than any of her past manic episodes. William stared coldly at her writhing on the bed, curled up in agony. To him, she looked like a maggot, filthy and repulsive. His self-control snapped. You still think you're the Grand Lady Johnson? Let me tell you, the Johnson family is finished, bankrupt. You're $5 billion in debt. Even the house was auctioned off. And your husband, Richard Johnson, he's rotting in Springfield Correctional Facility for the next 20 years. You think you're getting out of here? You're dreaming. You killed your own daughter. And you lied to me, said Ethan Johnson did it. If I hadn't believed your crap, I wouldn't be in this mess. A lunatic like you should be dead. No, death is too easy. You deserve to rot, alive, in this place, covered in sores and filth for the rest of your miserable life. William's eyes were bloodshot, all patience gone. After throwing the kettle, he picked up the only plastic chair in the room and smashed it against Aunt Margaret. The curses pouring out of his mouth were vile. He didn't even know what he was saying anymore. Seeing her twisted face gave him sick satisfaction. Tears weren't enough. He wanted blood. But the noise had drawn attention. Staff burst in. William was escorted out of the Mayo Clinic and banned from returning. That lead was gone. But secrets don't stay buried forever. Sooner or later, Benjamin Harper would find out. William just hadn't expected it to happen so soon. When he got home from the Springfield Mental Health Center, something felt off. The atmosphere was tense. He walked in to find Benjamin Harper sitting stiffly on the couch, silent. His expression was severe, a deep crease between his brows. There was a palpable air of anger. William's heart dropped. His legs started to feel weak even before he got close. He turned to Amelia Harper, who stood nearby with her head bowed, hoping to glean some clue from her face, but she didn't look up. Where have you been? Benjamin Harper's voice was hoarse, but full of authority. William was terrified of him. Standing before his father, he lowered his head. Nowhere, just out for a walk. He hadn't told anyone about visiting Aunt Margaret. He had snuck around the past few days, knowing that if Benjamin Harper found out, the debt would be exposed. A group of people came to Harper Tower. They had this. Benjamin Harper flung a folder of documents at William's face like a slap. They said, you owe them money. What the hell is going on? William dropped to his knees. Dad, I'm sorry. It wasn't my debt. It was the Johnson family's. Aunt Margaret tricked me into signing a document that made me legally responsible. I didn't know, really, I didn't. He scrambled to explain. Benjamin Harper's breathing turned heavy, veins bulging on the back of his hands. He raised one and slapped William across the face. William didn't dare dodge. He just took it, but one slap wasn't enough. The next was a punch, square on the nose. Blood poured out. Are you an idiot? Benjamin Harper jabbed a finger at his face. You signed a contract like that? She tricked you? Were you illiterate? William told him everything, kneeling, begging for forgiveness. Gone was the arrogance. He looked completely defeated. You really thought you could just waltz in and take someone else's inheritance? That she'd give it to you over her own son? If it weren't for your mess, Harper Enterprises wouldn't be in this kind of trouble. Blame kept piling on. William dared not speak. Then came the final blow. Get a divorce. Benjamin Harper threw divorce papers on the coffee table. He flung a pen onto the floor. Pick it up. Sign it. If he divorced Amelia now and left Harper Enterprises, wouldn't he be hounded to death by debt collectors? As the legal representative of Johnson Holdings, with Johnson Materials gone, there was no escape for him. After legal enforcement, he'd face not only hefty fines, but also consumption restrictions. Once blacklisted on the credit report, he wouldn't be able to work, and in severe cases, he could even face criminal charges. As an actor, he had painstakingly climbed the ladder in Hollywood for years to achieve what he had today. Now, because of this, he couldn't get gigs, couldn't film movies or appear on variety shows, and lost all his endorsements. Effectively shelved. Currently, only his agent, Lillian Bennett, knew about this. Lillian Bennett had kept it well hidden from the company, only telling him to resolve it quickly. No matter what, he was still Harper Enterprises' son-in-law. The problem wasn't insurmountable. If Benjamin Harper was willing to lend a hand, it could be solved. But unexpectedly, Benjamin Harper didn't even ask him a single question before deciding to abandon him. He and Amelia had just gotten their civil marriage registration. Benjamin Harper threw the pen on the floor. Seeing William unresponsive, he tossed a check onto him. His expression was disdainful, looking at William as if he were vermin in a trash heap. Sign the papers, and this $5 million is yours. It was like tossing charity utterly devoid of respect. He had always looked down on William. If Amelia hadn't made such a public fuss about wanting to be with him back then, he never would have agreed to this marriage. Benjamin Harper was a shrewd judge of character. People like William lacked real intellect, possessing only petty tricks. They had no vision, only a greed for small advantages. It was precisely this pettiness that allowed Margaret Johnson to deceive him. Getting scammed by someone with Munchausen syndrome was humiliating just to talk about. William couldn't work now, but he had a house and a car. Giving him $5 million was more than enough for him to live comfortably for the rest of his life. Benjamin felt he was already being very generous, especially since, recently, due to issues with substandard steel, many properties were stuck on his hands. The real estate market had been hyped up recently. In just 1 month, prices per square foot soared from a few thousand to $3K, $4K. Harper Enterprises already had real estate holdings, and Benjamin Harper had stockpiled many properties, even buying more opportunistically, waiting to sell at a high price for a massive profit. But now, news of his collaboration with the Johnson family had leaked to TMZ and was trending on Twitter. Buyers worried about the quality of the houses, and coupled with the currently inflated prices, no one wanted to buy from him. This meant the properties he acquired at high prices could only be sold at a loss. With too many properties stuck on his hands, recouping his investment was difficult. If they couldn't be sold, the losses would be incalculable. He'd been overwhelmed by this housing issue lately, so stressed that his hair was thinning drastically, his temples already gray. Seeing William kneeling silently on the floor, his anger flared, his patience completely gone. He lifted his foot and kicked William hard in the shoulder, knocking him to the ground. Still enraged, he stood up and kicked him several more times, his eyes flashing menacingly. "Get up and sign the papers. Don't make me repeat myself." Unsure where he'd been kicked, William gagged but didn't vomit, though the metallic taste of blood filled his throat. He stared at the check on the floor, resentment filling his heart. Ethan got $1. $5 million, but he only got $5 million? Why? If Amelia hadn't tempted him back then, insisting he become the Johnson family's godson, he wouldn't be in this mess. It was all Amelia's fault. Why should he suffer like this while the person who ruined him got a happy ending? It wasn't fair. William trembled. Onlookers assumed it was from the pain of the beating, but in reality, he was shaking with rage. Anger and resentment threatened to consume him bit by bit. He clenched his fists so tightly his knuckles turned white. Benjamin Harper stood before him, looking down. "If you don't sign, you won't even get the $5 million. The day the Johnson family's trouble surfaced, Benjamin Harper had wanted to call off the marriage. Who knew William would act so fast, taking Amelia to get their civil marriage registration right after lunch, even posting photos on Instagram? At the time, rumors were swirling online that Amelia was still hung up on Ethan, that her behavior at the wedding ceremony showed she didn't want to marry William and wanted out. After the photos and marriage certificate were posted, much of the online speculation died down, salvaging some of their reputation. But now, William had caused this colossal disaster. Benjamin, who already disliked him, now felt he was utterly hopeless, a complete waste. What use was a man like him? Useful for stirring up trouble? Useful for owing billions in debt? Or useful for being incompetent at everything? Unable even to handle something as simple as taking care of Amelia, as well as Ethan could? Take last month, when Amelia was filming a variety show, she got hit by someone and had a truffle allergy reaction. If Ethan had been taking care of her, none of that would have happened. William wouldn't sign. If he got divorced, his life was over. Staying with Harper Enterprises meant he could at least spend their money, and with their backing, those people outside wouldn't dare to bother him. William climbed up from the floor, only to kneel again. Kneeling was humiliating, but he treated it like acting. He kowtowed while begging, "Dad, please forgive me this once. I know I was wrong. I'll never do it again. Let me stay. I'll take good care of Amelia. We just got married. Getting divorced now will make us a laughingstock. If anyone's going to be laughed at, it'll be you." People naturally look out for themselves. Everyone understands that. Seeing that pleading with Benjamin Harper was futile, William crawled on his knees towards Amelia, grabbing her hand tremblingly. "Amelia, wife, you won't abandon me, right? We've known each other for so many years, grew up together. Our childhood, sweethearts bond. I've loved you for so long. I'd do anything for you. We finally got married. Are you really going to leave me and divorce me now?" Benjamin Harper remained silent, watching Amelia coldly, waiting for her answer. He hoped his daughter wouldn't disappoint him this time. William was now nothing but a burden. Being with him would only drag her down, like a camel overloaded in the desert. It might not seem like much at first, but over time, it's often the last straw that breaks its back. William could very well be that last straw. Amelia, bit her lower lip, glancing briefly at William before quickly looking away, unable to meet his eyes. Dad had already discussed the divorce with her, pointing out the many disadvantages to her, urging her to cut her losses and not persist in this mistake. It was only human nature to seek advantages and avoid harm, to choose the more beneficial path. She couldn't knowingly walk into a swamp, could she? Amelia felt a pang of pity, mixed with shame. She had wronged William. They had known each other for over 20 years, closer than family. When Benjamin Harper used to be busy, it was always William who kept her company at home. Just calling out to her wouldn't work. If anything, it would only annoy her, make her think he deserved it. So instead, he needed to trigger some adrenaline bonding. Amelia, we grew up together. Don't you remember, when you were 10, your birthday wish at the charity ball was to marry me? To stay with me forever? I never forgot. We finally had our wedding, and now that something's happened to me, you're going to leave me again? Again? Why again? When we were 18, just because we were close, your Benjamin Harper looked down on me. He thought I'd be a bad influence and insisted on sending me abroad. I knelt down and begged you both, just like I'm doing now. And what did you do? You locked yourself in your room and wouldn't even look at me. In the end, I was dragged into a car and forced out of the country. Do you have any idea what I went through out there? I didn't speak the language. I didn't understand the culture. I couldn't stomach the food. I got scammed out of my money, had my phone stolen, even got caught in a shooting on the street. I nearly died, more than once. They were in high school, still discovering their feelings. He and Amelia had fallen for each other. But when Benjamin Harper saw their chat messages, he blew up and cut all ties by shipping him overseas. Everyone had been in the wrong, but he was the only one punished. All because he was just a chauffeur's son, easy to discard. If only Amelia had stood up for him back then, had fought for him, he wouldn't have had to suffer so much abroad. Because of it, Amelia always carried guilt. When he returned, she used her money to build his acting career, gave him resources, did everything to cheer him up. Whenever he was sick, a single call would bring her running, even if it was the night of her philanthropic gala. Don't you remember? When you were little and had a fever, I stayed by your side all night. When you were scared of thunderstorms, I slept on the floor next to your bed. The time you got lost, I found you and carried you home. If it weren't for me, you'd have been taken by human traffickers. After your mom died, your dad was too busy to be there. I cooked you birthday pasta for your birthday charity ball. We went to school together. I was always by your side. And you abandoned me because you were too scared to stand up to your Benjamin Harper. You wouldn't even see me once. Do you know how much I hated you back then? But when I saw you again after coming home, none of that seemed to matter anymore. I finally made it back, and you're with Ethan now. You threw away your childhood promise, and you threw me away too. But did I say anything? I know I'm not good enough for you. I just kept taking roles, one after another, trying to make it in Hollywood, trying to be worthy of you. I thought if I stayed by your side long enough, one day you'd finally see me. William's eyes turned red, his voice thick with emotion. He paused, coughing violently, each cough tearing at his chest and stomach. He gripped Amelia's hand tightly. What began as an act to spark some emotional sympathy had become real. He wasn't just putting on a show anymore. He truly felt the pain, the bitterness. I waited so long for you to come back to me. We got married, had our civil ceremony, became husband and wife in front of everyone. And now, just because I made a mistake, you want to divorce me? Amelia, have you forgotten who convinced the Johnson family to adopt me? You didn't even talk to me about it. You and your Benjamin Harper made that call. I followed your every wish, and now that I messed up, you tossed me aside like garbage. If it weren't for you, would I have fallen into that trap and made such a mistake? Actions have consequences, and those consequences started with Amelia. If she hadn't been unwilling to let go of Ethan, hadn't wanted revenge, hadn't pulled him in her plan, would he be like this? William's lips curled. Not quite a smile, not quite a cry. You call me when you need me, and throw me away when you don't. What am I to you? Not even a dog. Just a tool you use to get back at Ethan. Amelia stumbled back a step, but William's grip was unrelenting, like a venomous snake wrapped around her arm. His face was twisted in pain and rage, accusing her with everything he had. She couldn't pretend to feel nothing. She wasn't made of stone. If she couldn't forget 3 years with Ethan, how could she forget 20 years with William? People raise a bunny for that long and feel attached. He was a person. Amelia said nothing. There was nothing to refute. Everything William said was true. She looked at William's pain, his dried-out throat, his hoarse and cracking voice. Benjamin Harper sensed things were getting out of hand and stepped forward, furious. Enough with the sob story. Sign the divorce papers. I tried to be civil, but you're forcing my hand. He reached out to strike William, but Amelia suddenly threw herself in front of him. Dad, move, Benjamin Harper ordered. Amelia shook her head. She glanced behind her at the kneeling William, then clenched her teeth and knelt beside him. Benjamin Harper looked at the scene in disbelief, laughing angrily. What the hell is this? You're begging for this loser. Dad, William's right. It is my fault he ended up like this. If I hadn't insisted on marrying him, if I hadn't made you reach out to the Johnsons and get him adopted, he wouldn't have fallen for Margaret Johnson's lies. It all started because I ran out on my wedding. If she had just stayed at the gala and gone through the motions with Ethan, none of this would have happened. Or if, after breaking off the engagement, Harper Enterprises hadn't tried to smear Ethan to save face, he might not have retaliated either. She had been in denial. But now, with everything falling apart, she could no longer avoid the truth. So what are you saying now? Benjamin Harper glared at her and William. I insisted on marrying William. Now that he's in trouble, I can't just walk away. I won't divorce him. Smack. Benjamin Harper slapped her hard. Amelia's head snapped to the side, her hand hitting the floor for balance. She stared blankly, then looked up at him, her eyes filled with hurt. He had never hit her before. Not when she was little, not when she made mistakes. He'd always punished her with cold silence or grounded her in her room. He had been strict, but he loved her. When she skipped the gala to see William, he had yelled at her over the phone, lectured her, for her own good. When she insisted on marrying William, he disapproved, but gave in. Benjamin Harper was a man of ambition, but he also wanted Amelia to marry someone who truly cared for her. First Ethan, then William, men he thought she could control. But it turned out, he misjudged them both. Sentimentality when it doesn't count. And now you choose to be sentimental? Who are you putting on a show for? Benjamin Harper pointed at Amelia, his hands trembling with fury. Benjamin Harper wasn't a man driven by sentiment. Too long in the world of business had taught him to view everyone and everything through the lens of potential gain. His world had slowly simplified into two categories, useful or useless. Before the Johnson family's downfall, William held some strategic value in his eyes. But now, with the Johnson family reduced to a disastrous mess, William was nothing more than a disease-ridden bug crawling on a trash heap. He did love Amelia. She was his own flesh and blood, after all. When her cooperation wasn't required for his plans, he could afford to respect her opinions, even tolerate her stubbornness. But his tolerance had its limits. Benjamin Harper embodied the authoritarian parenting style. He wouldn't brook any challenge to his authority. I've indulged you far too much. That's why you become so utterly defiant. Amelia tried to reason with her father. It's not as if our family can't afford to support one more person. Why are you so determined to kick William out? Support? Benjamin Harper scoffed derisively. You support pets? Cats and dogs. What dignity is there in supporting a grown man? Besides, do you have any clue how much trouble follows him? Things will resolve themselves in time. Amelia's voice trailed off, her earlier conviction fading. Easy for her to say. They had signed a prenuptial agreement. William's debts and legal liabilities couldn't touch Amelia at present. But what about the future? The longer they stayed together, the more intertwined their lives would become. As ties strengthened, so too would the entanglement of their interests, making a clean separation nearly impossible down the line. The cold smirk on Benjamin Harper's face stung Amelia. Dad, is everything about self-interest to you? Keep those who benefit you. Discard them when they're useless? It's William today. Will it be me tomorrow? If William and I divorce, will you instantly line up the next candidate for me? William might not be the outstanding man you wanted, but at least he treats me well. And since I am married to him, I won't just cast him aside. It was like the vow Pastor Smith had elicited at the wedding. For richer, for poorer, in sickness and in health, forsaking all others. Amelia firmed her resolve, her gaze meeting her father's steadily. Benjamin Harper's sneer vanished, replaced by a cold mask. He stared at her, his hands clenching into fists at his sides as he fought the overwhelming urge to strike her. So this was how his own daughter saw him. He couldn't deny that self-interest often ruled the adult world. But when it came to Amelia, he truly felt he had done everything he could, the best he knew how. Benjamin Harper had lectured Amelia before. You could choose a man for his looks, for his wealth, even for his prowess in the bedroom. But the one thing you should never choose him for was simply because he's good to you. Love and being treated well were fleeting, intangible things that could vanish in an instant. Clearly, Amelia had forgotten his teachings. They were both consumed by anger. Lecturing her now would be utterly futile. She wouldn't hear a word of it. A bit of stubbornness could be seen as character, but this level of defiance was just self-destructive foolishness. Some lessons couldn't be taught with words alone. Only after she'd run headlong into a wall herself would she truly understand. As if coming to a realization, Benjamin Harper unclenched his fists. Fine. Since you can't bear to part with William, you can get out and take him with you. Amelia stood frozen, motionless, as though the words were a physical blow that left her stunned, wondering if she'd heard him right. Benjamin Harper delivered his ultimatum. You want to be with William? Fine, but don't ever set foot in this house again. Harper Enterprises will have nothing more to do with you. And as far as I'm concerned, I no longer have a daughter. Amelia shook her head, her voice raspy. Dad, don't call me Dad. Benjamin steeled himself. Get out, now. Save me the trouble of forcing you onto the next highest bidder later, since I'm apparently such an opportunist. He was forcing her hand, making her choose between her father and her husband of mere days. Amelia was torn, unable to comprehend why her family couldn't make room for the man she loved. William's heart hammered against his ribs. This was not the outcome he'd envisioned. If Amelia was truly cut off from Harper Enterprises, their marriage became utterly meaningless. Still, Benjamin Harper likely wouldn't be that heartless, William reasoned. Amelia was his only child. Since his wife's passing, Benjamin had dedicated himself entirely to his work and raising Amelia. He hadn't remarried, nor had he strayed like Richard Johnson, accumulating mistresses and illegitimate children. The vast Harper Enterprises fortune had to go to Amelia eventually. Benjamin's threats today were surely just bluster, fueled by anger. Convinced of this, William resolved to cling tightly to Amelia. Amelia, William called her name, his expression full of carefully crafted anguish. Forget it. Let's just get a divorce. I'll leave on my own. Don't fight with your father over me. It's not worth it. You'll still be Lady Harper. As for me, I guess we just weren't fated to be together. Amelia's heart clenched, deeply moved. She snatched William's hand and rose to her feet. Dad, I'm sorry, she declared. I choose William. And with that, under the stunned gazes of everyone present, they walked hand in hand out the main doors of Harper Enterprises, enacting a scene straight out of some cheesy television drama about lovers defying the world for their forbidden romance. This time, Benjamin Harper was so enraged he nearly lost his balance. He stumbled back and sank onto the sofa, his right hand gripping the armrest with white-knuckled force. Seeing his employer close his eyes, Mr. Stevens quickly poured a glass of lukewarm water and brought it to Benjamin Harper's lips. Benjamin Harper managed 2 sips before he could finally catch his breath. Am I a failure as a father, Stevens? He asked, his voice strained. You've done admirably, sir, Mr. Stevens replied promptly. Have I? Benjamin murmured, unconvinced. He couldn't help but wonder. What if he'd simply acquiesced when Amelia first expressed her reluctance to marry? Would things have spiraled so dramatically out of control? At the time, his reasoning had been simple. William was Amelia's own choice. They were engaged, the invitations had gone out, the Rosewood Grand Hotel was booked. For her to suddenly back out then would have caused chaos and embarrassment. Running away from the wedding once was bad enough, but attempting it twice? She was treating the sanctity of marriage like a joke. That was why he'd been adamant. The wedding had to proceed. And that insistence, who could have foreseen this outcome? He had truly reaped what he'd sown. Amelia walking out on her family for William's sake had cut Benjamin Harper to the core. But Benjamin Harper didn't relent. He revoked Amelia's access to her trusts, specifically naming the Johnson Family Trust, confiscated the keys to her house and car, and froze all her credit cards. Furthermore, he made calls and posted a pointed message on his Instagram feed, explicitly forbidding anyone within their social circle from offering Amelia any assistance. Amelia, fiercely proud, saw her father's Instagram post and felt too humiliated to even consider asking friends for financial help. Moreover, Benjamin Harper instructed Aaron to convey a clear message to Amelia. Since she had chosen to sever ties with her family over a man, she was henceforth forbidden from using family funds or leveraging family connections. Every expensive piece of jewelry, every designer handbag, every costly outfit she owned, items easily worth tens of thousands, had been provided by him. If she possessed such noble pride and truly intended to share William's hardships, then she should never expect to turn to him again. The underlying message was clear. You couldn't have it both ways. Aaron conveyed Benjamin Harper's message word for word, but before ending the call, he added a piece of advice. Ms. Harper, your father only said those things out of extreme anger. If you just apologize sincerely, show him you'll listen, I'm sure he'll forgive you. Despite the clear warning and the offered lifeline, Amelia didn't waver. She didn't turn back. In Amelia's eyes, Benjamin Harper was simply forcing her hand. When she'd initially said she didn't want to marry William, he had insisted she go through with the wedding ceremony. Now that she was married, the moment something went wrong, he was demanding a divorce. What was she in Benjamin Harper's eyes? A bunny plush he could manipulate at will? She was a grown woman. Why couldn't she make her own decisions? Why did she have to obey him in everything, unable even to control her own marriage and relationships? The more Benjamin Harper threatened her, the less Amelia wanted to yield. William's words had also stirred memories of high school. Benjamin Harper had always been strict with her. She had feared him since childhood. Even when she knew Benjamin was wrong, she never dared to contradict him. Her rebellious phase might have come late, but it had arrived. News quickly spread that Amelia had broken ties with her family over a man. This feeling of defying the world for love might seem romantic to a child, but to others, it just looked like she was an idiot willingly inviting hardship. A few friends still cared about Amelia's situation, calling and texting her privately, but Amelia didn't reply. The cards linked to her accounts had been frozen. All she had was the readily accessible cash in her digital wallet, maybe 20 or 30,000, enough to get by for a while. She could no longer go to the apartments and condos she'd bought before. After all, her family had paid for them. She moved into William's apartment near Harper Tower. The monthly rent was $10,000, and with only a week left until the end of the month, they needed to find a suitable place quickly. William's current situation meant he couldn't book any jobs, bringing his income to zero. Leaving Harper Tower also meant facing breach of contract penalties, worsening his already staggering $300 million debt. As for finding a new job, how could he manage when his ID was effectively unusable? In the kind of manual labor jobs that didn't require ID, he was too proud to stoop to that. For now, Amelia's plan was simple. Find a cheap place first, then slowly look for work. She had, at least, worked at Harper Enterprises and had some experience. Surely, in a city this large, she could find a job capable of supporting two people. Amelia made a trip back to the apartment she had once shared with Ethan, packing a few changes of clothes. Proudly, she left behind all the expensive bags and jewelry. When it came to house hunting, Amelia found a two-bedroom apartment. It was far from the Westbrook district, but there were subway and bus lines nearby. The neighborhood wasn't great, but the main draw was the cheap rent, $2,500 a month. Amelia had never known rent could be so low. After they finished moving, William held Amelia's hand, his heart aching for her. He promised her repeatedly, "Amelia, thank you for choosing me, for sacrificing so much for me. I swear I'll work harder to treat you better in the future. I will never let you down." A man's promises are only truly real in the moment they are spoken. Unfortunately, Amelia didn't understand this truth back then. In a cramped Brooklyn loft, she believed that if they just worked hard, they could build a good life and overcome any obstacle. Sometimes, she still thought of Ethan, remembering his coldness at the wedding ceremony. A dream she couldn't return to, a person lost, a connection severed. A stubbornness simmered inside Amelia. Everyone laughed at her, said she'd made the wrong choice. Well, she would make damn sure she lived well. She would prove that even after leaving Harper Enterprises, she would thrive. She wouldn't regret it. As for Ethan, he'd merely been kind to her for those 3 years. Anything he could do, William could do too, maybe even better. After settling in, Amelia started her job search. She actually managed to land a position as a CEO's executive assistant. She assumed she got it based on her resume, but in reality, her employer had recognized her as Benjamin Harper's daughter and hired her because of it. Back at Harper Enterprises, Amelia had been inconsistent, working sporadically and never taking it seriously. She thought being an executive assistant would be simple, mostly running errands, but she hadn't expected it to be so complex. Once, she accidentally misplaced an important file and had to work frantically until 2 in the morning to recreate it. She knew work was tiring, but she hadn't realized just how exhausting it could be. Yet, this was just a normal day for an ordinary person. Ethan used to work much harder than this back at the Johnson Family Company, but he always came home on time to cook for her. After dinner, he'd return to his room to continue working. The bedroom was where he slept, and also where he worked. While Amelia was at work, William stayed home. He could cook, but not well. His specialties were instant noodles and dried noodles. Compared to Ethan's culinary skills, it was like comparing heaven and earth. Amelia always ate with a frown. When William realized she couldn't stomach his cooking, he started ordering takeout. Takeout was convenient, but expensive, and eating it often wasn't healthy. Previously, Amelia almost never ordered takeout, partly because it was unhealthy and partly because it wasn't as good as Ethan's cooking. Comparing the two, William seemed more like a simp. Couldn't cook well, couldn't even clean the house properly. Ethan knew that Benjamin Harper had kicked Amelia out. That she would go to such lengths for William was entirely within his expectations. Richard Johnson was in prison, and Margaret Johnson was confined to Springfield Psychiatric Hospital. Both were demanding to see Ethan, but he refused them all. He could easily imagine what they would say. He wasn't masochistic enough to seek out their abuse. He already knew how miserable they were. The rest was simply cutting off all ties until death. Besides, Ethan was extremely busy these days and had no extra energy to waste on them. Apart from making money, Ethan had been keeping a close eye on Sophia Thompson. After confirming that the child she carried was William's, he anonymously contacted her, warning her to be careful William didn't try to kill her. Not long after, Sophia Thompson checked into the Mayo Clinic, clearly having taken his warning to heart. On the day of William's wedding, she gave birth to a baby boy at the Mayo Clinic. A detective sent Ethan photos. With just one glance, Ethan knew. This child was the adopted son who had pulled out his oxygen tube in his previous life. When Ethan had adopted him, the boy was only a couple of years younger, and a toddler's face looks very different from a newborn's. Ethan recognized him instantly because his adopted son had a distinctive black birthmark on his arm. In the photos the detective sent, the birthmark was identical in the exact same spot. Because he had long anticipated this outcome, Ethan wasn't surprised. But anger was definitely there. The thought that the child he had raised in his past life was William's spawn made him feel nauseated with disgust. Ethan remembered the first time he met the child. The boy had toddled towards him, and the first word out of his mouth was "Daddy." At that moment, Ethan had thought, regardless of whether he was biologically his or not, since he was raising him, he would do it with all his heart, give him the best possible life, and treat him as his own son. Initially, the child had been very attached to him. But then, at some point, he started disobeying. "I hate Daddy," became a common refrain. He clung to William, pointing at the TV and saying, "I don't want to study. I want to be a big star like Uncle Hayes. Uncle Hayes never forces me to do homework. He buys me buffalo wings and ice cream. Daddy, do you know why Mommy doesn't like you? Because you're not as great as Uncle Hayes. So many people like Uncle Hayes. What's wrong with me liking him too? Dad, you're so boring. All you ever do is work and chores. You're no fun at all. That's why Mom doesn't like you. All you care about is making me study and do homework. I hate math class, and I don't want to learn English. You never think about how I feel. To you, I'm just some robot. Uncle Hayes feels sorry for me. He buys me toys and helps me collect baseball cards. He told me everyone deserves a real childhood. I wish Uncle Hayes was my dad. Everyone in my class would be so jealous. I don't want you at the parent-teacher conference. I want Mom and Uncle Hayes there." In his past life, Ethan had thought the boy was just too young to understand that he'd appreciate his efforts once he grew up. He created a rigorous study plan for his adopted son, Daniel, hired renowned tutors, and even employed professional nutritionists to manage his health. When Daniel grew up, he graduated from a prestigious university and became a company president. He stopped saying those cruel things. To outsiders, he appeared filial and mature, a model son. But only Ethan knew the truth. Daniel was distant. Ethan had felt a pang of envy watching a father and son play basketball in a park, and he'd pause whenever he saw online videos of families traveling together. His adopted son remained estranged, moving out on his own at 20. He'd call Amelia during the holidays, but pointedly ignored Ethan. Daniel eventually had a wife and son of his own, yet Ethan, in his previous life, felt utterly alone. He'd fallen into deep confusion, wondering if his approach to raising Daniel had truly been wrong. Now reborn, he finally understood. The problem wasn't his methods. The problem was the boy himself, rotten to the core. All the confusing things he could never figure out before were suddenly crystal clear. No wonder Daniel had been so close to William Hayes. No wonder Ethan's efforts to raise him properly had been futile. And no wonder Daniel had pulled out his oxygen tube, fulfilling the wishes of Amelia and his Uncle Hayes. In his past life, he'd been like a workhorse, and they were like leeches draining him dry. Perhaps even God couldn't bear to watch anymore and had granted him this second chance. He didn't know what became of them after his death in that life, but in this one, he would ensure none of them prospered. No one would escape his wrath. Since Daniel loved being with his biological father so much, well then, Ethan would just have to grant his wish, wouldn't he? Ethan began systematically selling off the properties he owned. An initial $5 million investment had snowballed into $300 million through real estate speculation. Lately, housing prices had skyrocketed, attracting widespread attention. Many seized this opportunity to make a fortune. It was an industry where fortunes were made and lost overnight. The risks were enormous, but high risk was the price of high reward. Few aimed for slow, steady gains. The Johnson family had gone bankrupt, leaving Benjamin Harper unable to handle the massive Westbrook District project alone. His capital chain snapped, forcing him to rob Peter to pay Paul. If Ethan made his money back in real estate, he wouldn't need partners cutting into his profits. Seeing the booming real estate market, Benjamin Harper decided to hold onto his existing properties, betting on further appreciation. He didn't just hold, he bought aggressively. However, by the time he bought in, prices were already at $3,000 per square foot. To break even, he'd need them to hit at least $4,000. Observing the market frenzy, he felt confident he could sell everything off once prices were speculated up to $60,000 per square foot. He brimmed with confidence, never suspecting that the mastermind fueling this bubble was Ethan. When the Johnson family scandal broke, the value of the properties in Benjamin Harper's portfolio took a hit. After prices peaked at the speculated $60,000 per square foot, they began a steep decline. Before Benjamin Harper could react, waves of online experts began predicting further drops, advising the public to hold off on buying and wait for official announcements. Soon after, the government released new regulations restricting property purchases and mandating 2 years of Social Security contributions, drastically limiting the pool of eligible buyers. Even the wealthy, regardless of their cash reserves, were barred from buying multiple properties at once. Benjamin Harper had initially aimed to sell at a break-even price of $3,000 per square foot, but now, with the government restrictions in place and sudden quality inspections plaguing his developments, prices merely stabilized instead of rebounding. Potential buyers now had more options and took their time scrutinizing properties. After all, a house isn't a car you can easily fix. If shoddy construction led to a collapse, the consequences would be catastrophic. Despite Harper Enterprises issuing constant reassurances that their buildings met quality standards and posed no risks, buyers remained unconvinced. Benjamin Harper had invested over $1.5 million in these real estate ventures, but sales weren't generating even a fraction of that amount. Looking over the accounts, Benjamin Harper saw red, then black. He coughed up a mouthful of blood and promptly fainted. Fortunately, his assistant and secretary were present and rushed him to the Mayo Clinic. Benjamin Harper knew the losses would be severe, but he hadn't anticipated the sheer scale of the disaster. He had watched the Johnson family's bankruptcy with detached amusement, never imagining his own turn would come so swiftly. How could he possibly fill such a massive financial hole? If he couldn't, his only option was selling the Westbrook District land, a prospect he loathed. His only immediate recourse was to find a partner for a capital injection, but which family possessed the resources and the willingness to bail him out? Benjamin Harper mulled it over and landed on the Yian Group. If he offered them 10% of the profits, would they be willing to invest and help him weather this storm? He wasn't sure. After all, the Yian Group had recently helped Ethan quash those online attacks. Could the two already be in cahoots? The thought sent another surge of blood rushing to his head, making him dizzy. He quickly shut his eyes, leaned back against the pillow, and gulped for air. "Mr. Harper, are you all right?" his assistant asked worriedly from the bedside. "Should I call Mrs. Harper and ask her to come?" Mentioning Amelia only agitated him further. "I'm fine," Benjamin snapped. "Don't call her. Not unless she divorces that William Hayes." Despite his harsh words, it was clear he secretly longed for Amelia's presence, though his pride wouldn't let him admit it or back down. He knew that compromising now would set a precedent. He had to hold firm. Given time, Amelia would learn the importance of money and realize William Hayes wasn't worth $1.5 million. The assistant discreetly texted Amelia anyway, urging her to come see her father. Amelia's immediate reaction was suspicion. She figured the assistant was just trying to trick her into coming back. After all, her father had seemed perfectly healthy, energetic enough to hit someone when she'd left. So, Amelia cautiously replied, "I'll come back if he agrees to see William Hayes with me." The assistant stood by the door, gazing at Benjamin Harper lying pale-faced under the forge drip, his hair looking grayer than usual. Stripped of his title as chairman of Harper Enterprises, he was just a father. The assistant hoped his daughter would grasp the situation, mature quickly, and step up to share some of the burden. Benjamin Harper was still fixated on the Yian Group when his phone rang. It was Victor. Brother-in-law Victor said, "I got the contact info for the boss of the Yian Group." Benjamin Harper froze, almost thinking he was hearing things. "You're telling me you got the contact information for the head of Yian Group?" "Yeah, and I asked him out for a meal." "What did he say?" "He said he doesn't have time." Victor Harper paused. "Just inviting him to dinner won't work. The intention is too obvious, and he'd see right through it." But while we were talking, He mentioned Victoria Harper. I think he might be interested in her. Brother-in-law, what do you think? Should I use Victoria Harper to curry favor and introduce her to the Yian boss? Benjamin Harper knew what he was up to. Victoria Harper was a beauty, a truly striking one. No man disliked a beautiful woman. Victoria had never lacked suitors growing up, and after she came of age, some even wanted to marry her for strategic alliances. Unfortunately, Edward Harper died early, and while Victor Harper talked big, he couldn't actually control Victoria Harper. Victor setting his sights on Victoria now was likely half motivated by revenge for her stabbing his palm with a fork. His hand was still aching. The doctor said he'd damaged a tendon, and even after healing, it wouldn't be as flexible as before. How are you going to introduce them? Benjamin asked calmly. Victoria is completely devoted to Ethan Johnson. Do you think she'll listen to you and meet the Yian boss? I'm hosting a banquet at the Harper family estate the day after tomorrow. We'll call it a birthday celebration for Victoria. Birthday? Didn't her birthday already pass? It did. Consider it a belated celebration. We'll spare no expense to make it grand. Benjamin still had doubts, but Victor continued, Don't worry, brother-in-law, I'll handle everything. The Yian boss said he'll be there, and Victoria will come back too. Once Victoria marries him, with that connection, how could we not help you? Just wait for the money to roll in. Don't be so confident. This isn't that simple. Benjamin couldn't help but throw cold water on his enthusiasm. Things always seemed to go wrong at crucial moments. He had to be cautious. Victor, however, wasn't concerned and didn't take Benjamin's words seriously. The Yian boss is coming for Victoria. As long as we handle Victoria for him, there's no problem. If the soft approach doesn't work, we'll use force. We'll wrap her up and deliver her to his room. Victor let out a meaningful laugh. She'll have to submit whether she wants to or not. Deep down, Victor looked down on women. He believed women were men's playthings, tools for childbirth, like dependent vines clinging to men. Sending Victoria to a powerful boss was doing her a favor. Victoria should be thanking him. After all, not just any woman could marry such a rich and powerful man. Offering herself was her honor. Once she became Mrs. Yian Group, she would have reached the pinnacle of life. So, in Victor's view, Victoria wouldn't refuse such a good opportunity. If persuasion failed, coercion would work. Women might say no at first, but they'd eventually give in, and then they wouldn't be able to leave even if they wanted to. Benjamin felt uneasy, a sense of disquiet settling in. It all felt a bit too coincidental. Just as he ran into trouble and needed investors, Yian Group conveniently appeared. Don't you think it's too much of a coincidence? The famously mysterious Yian boss was suddenly contacted by Victor. It looked suspiciously like a trap. Well, truth is stranger than fiction, and it's not entirely a coincidence. We've been asking about Yian Group all year, after all. Brother-in-law, stop overthinking. Just think of it as your bad luck ending and good fortune knocking on your door. I ran into a fortune teller on the street recently and paid him to read your fortune. Guess what? He said you'd recently encounter petty people and lose money, but you'd soon meet a benefactor. See how accurate that is? So just relax. Nobody stays unlucky forever. When your Westbrook District project makes money, share some with me, okay? Victor rambled on, giving Benjamin a headache. Benjamin pinched the bridge of his nose. Fine. Since you've already made the arrangements, I'll definitely be there the day after tomorrow. Then take care of yourself. I heard you kicked Amelia Harper out of the house recently. She's immature right now. Don't take it too hard. I'm sure she'll understand your good intentions soon enough. Victor offered hollow comfort over the phone. Mentioning Amelia Harper just made Benjamin feel weary. Let's not talk about her. I'm tired. With that, he hung up. Elsewhere, didn't they say Amelia Harper graduated from a prestigious university? How come she doesn't know how to do anything? She even messes up generating reports. What can she do? I bet she just bribed her way through school. Cut her some slack. She's Lady Harper, after all, from a rich and powerful family. How would she know anything about ordinary life? Yeah, for poor people, work is slaving away. For rich people, it's experiencing life. Damn capitalists. She's been at Harper Tower for ages, and I have to clean up her messes every day. Why should I? I'm doing the work of two people, but only getting paid for one. She's so rich. Why is she stealing my money? Keep your voice down. Someone might hear you. The boss is still trying to get close to her. I don't care. She's just a pretty face, totally useless. Why did a perfectly fine, rich young lady come to work at this dump of a Harper Tower anyway? Outside the break room door, Amelia Harper tightened her grip on the cup in her hand. She had come to refill her boss's tea and hadn't expected to hear this. These past few days working at Harper Tower, she could clearly feel the distance others kept from her. During lunch, Everyone else went in pairs or groups, leaving her alone. She used to think working was easy, simple tasks, flexible hours, friendly people smiling at her. Who knew the real work environment was like this? If you weren't competent, people called you useless and gossiped behind your back about being just a pretty face. She realized these were the exact words she used to throw at Victoria Harper. Now, it had all bounced back onto her, and she couldn't even refute it. She pushed the door open. The two who had been chatting animatedly immediately stopped, shot her a glance, and hurried out of the break room. Amelia Harper was isolated. She wanted to quit, but she had worked hard to find this job. The internship paid $3K, $4K a month. She never used to think twice about that amount. It was the cost of dress, a pair of shoes, or some earrings, things readily available at home. But now, a $3K, $4K salary could cover rent and put food on the table for two people. Even that salary was only offered out of consideration for her father. If she had applied on her own merit, she probably would have been fired by now. Ding! Her phone's ringtone interrupted Amelia's troubled thoughts. She snapped back to reality, pulled out her phone, and saw it was a call from her uncle, Victor Harper. "Uncle!" Victor's voice came through the phone. "Amelia, you've been away from home for so long. Are you settling in okay?" Hearing a relative's concern, Amelia felt a sting in her nose. "Yes," she lied. "I'm doing fine. Amelia, it's better to be home and out here. There's nothing a father and daughter can't work through. Please, listen to me and come home. Benjamin Harper misses you. You're grown up now. Don't be so headstrong. Your dad has his own struggles. You need to try and understand him. He's had it tough these past few years." Amelia held the phone silently, but her eyes started to sting. Victor Harper's rambling voice continued through the receiver, slurring slightly and pausing after every few sentences, sounding like he'd been drinking. "Uncle, have you been drinking?" "Yes, I've had a few, but I'm not drunk." Amelia's interruption almost made him forget the real reason for his call. "Amelia, tomorrow night, I'm hosting a philanthropic gala at the Harper Hotel. Be there, keep an eye on the time." "Philanthropic gala? What philanthropic gala?" The rich had all sorts of galas, mostly excuses for people to show off and network. Victor Harper explained, "Victoria Harper's birthday charity ball." "I'm not going." The mere thought of Victoria Harper made Amelia's skin crawl with resentment and jealousy. She couldn't stand the woman. Why would she possibly attend her birthday charity ball? To watch her bask in the glory? "Your father will be there too. I've picked out a man for Victoria Harper. We'll basically gift wrap her and send her off tonight." Amelia was stunned for a moment. "Who did you choose for her?" "The head of the Yang Group. Being with him would be the best thing that ever happened to her." "What if she refuses?" "Like father, like daughter," thinking along the same lines. Victor Harper, loosened by alcohol, drunkenly spilled the entire plan to Amelia. "We'll drug her drink later, shove her into his room, and make it a fait accompli. She'll have no choice but to accept it then." Amelia couldn't believe Victor Harper would stoop to this. Her nerves tensed. "Won't there be trouble?" she murmured. "It's our own Rosewood Grand Hotel. What could possibly go wrong? Besides, Victoria Harper's hardly as sane herself. Didn't you say you saw her going into the Rosewood Grand Hotel with some guy? She even managed to seduce Ethan. If we say she seduced the head of Yang Group, everyone will believe it." Just mentioning Victoria Harper and Ethan made Victor Harper grit his teeth with hatred. He couldn't wait to get his revenge. Once he had the Yang Group on his side, the first person he'd deal with was Ethan, running him out of Rosewood City. "Don't you want a front row seat for such a spectacular show? You hate Victoria Harper more than anyone, right? Now your uncle is helping you get back at her." Amelia felt a flicker of temptation. "The night after tomorrow?" "That's right," Victor Harper continued. "Your father will be there. I'll put in a good word with him then." "Uncle, can I bring William?" Victor Harper, slurring his words from the alcohol, agreed readily. After hanging up, Amelia gripped her phone tightly. She had only missed their engagement party, and Ethan already wanted to call it off. If he saw Victoria Harper in bed with another man with his own eyes, would he still want her? Some men claimed they didn't care about a woman's purity, but deep down, they still saw losing her virginity as something shameful. Malice seeped uncontrollably from her heart. Her face darkened, her expression twisting ugly. She didn't think she was doing anything wrong. After all, she wasn't the one drugging Victoria Harper. She wasn't the one setting her up with a man. Besides, Victoria Harper was a loose woman anyway. She was just good at pretending in front of Ethan. Ethan had been fooled by her. She was merely trying to make Ethan see Victoria Harper's true colors. She was helping him cut his losses. She wasn't wrong. Once Ethan realized what kind of woman Victoria Harper truly was, maybe he'd even thank her. Amelia gradually convinced herself, and her conscience quieted. The fewer people who knew about this, the better. Back at the loft, Amelia simply told William they were going to the philanthropic gala at the Harper Hotel the day after tomorrow. William agreed immediately, assuming Amelia was making progress reconciling with Benjamin Harper. He couldn't stand another day in this dingy Brooklyn loft. He'd eaten takeout every single day since they'd left home. To make a good impression on Amelia, he hadn't even dared to order anything expensive. He was sick of it, feeling like he reeked of cheap takeout. Ethan was right there when Victor Harper called Victoria Harper. She cheerfully agreed, promising she would be there on time. Ethan knew immediately that Victor Harper was up to no good. "Your birthday was ages ago," he said. "Isn't it a bit late to be throwing you a makeup party now?" It was clearly a trap, and Ethan couldn't shake his unease. Victoria Harper squeezed his hand. "Don't worry, I know what I'm doing." She had her own plans, and Ethan chose to respect her decision, but he couldn't bear the thought of her going alone. "I'll go with you tomorrow night. If you come with me, they won't even let you through the door," she replied. "How about this? Go to the Rosewood Grand Hotel early tomorrow, get a room, and wait for me. I'll come find you when I'm done." The suggestion held a hint of intimacy. Victoria Harper produced a key card and handed it to him. "Here's the key card." She had even prepared a key card. Clearly, she had anticipated this. Ethan took it. "What's your plan?" Victoria Harper said calmly. "No plan. Live and let live. If they don't mess with me, I won't mess with them. I'm very easygoing." Ethan's gaze deepened. "Take care of yourself." Victoria Harper chuckled. "Don't worry. I wouldn't want to cause you any heartache." On the day of the philanthropic gala, Ethan glanced at the luxury cars parked outside the Rosewood Grand Hotel. Victor Harper had clearly spared no expense for Victoria Harper's makeup birthday charity ball. You had to bait the hook to catch the fish. The more he invested, the greater his ulterior motives must be. When Ethan entered the Rosewood Grand Hotel, it wasn't crowded yet. Guests started arriving around 5 o'clock. The entire second floor was dedicated to the event. Ethan watched from a hallway vantage point, noticing the crowd was predominantly male. Victor Harper moved through the crowd, greeting guests. Ethan recognized several people. Benjamin Harper was there. Soon after, Amelia arrived with William. Encouraged by Victor Harper, Amelia approached Benjamin Harper. After a brief exchange Ethan couldn't hear, Benjamin Harper glanced towards William, his expression tight with suppressed anger. Likely mindful of the surrounding crowd, knowing losing his temper would cause a scene and embarrass him, he restrained himself. In the end, William and Amelia stood behind Benjamin Harper, heads bowed, looking subdued and careful not to step out of line. As if sensing his gaze, Amelia suddenly looked up and met his eyes. They weren't far apart. She clearly saw him. Ethan frowned, then turned and walked away. He expected Amelia to have him thrown out, but after waiting a while, nothing happened. Seeing that he was left alone, he found another spot to continue observing. At 8 o'clock, Victoria Harper finally made her entrance. Her arrival immediately captured everyone's attention. It was impossible to deny her stunning beauty. It wasn't just her looks, but the confident, almost defiant aura she projected. Every movement exuded charisma. Victor Harper approached her, leaned in, and said something quietly. Victoria Harper's expression remained unchanged. She gave a slight nod and followed him demurely to a corner. Victor Harper's face practically ached from smiling. Spotting Amelia Harper walk in with William Hayes, he quickly waved them over. "What took you so long?" "I just got off work." "Come, let me take you to see your father, Benjamin Harper." Victor Harper led Amelia Harper over to Benjamin Harper. "Brother-in-law, Amelia's here. Why did you bring her here?" Benjamin Harper's expression, already sour, darkened further when he saw William Hayes standing behind Amelia. "Amelia just got off work. Look how drawn her face is." "Brother-in-law, even if you don't feel for your own daughter, can't you let me dote on my niece? And don't look so stern. This is an important occasion. You two should sit down and talk things over. There shouldn't be bad blood between father and daughter." "It's easy to talk when you're not the one getting burned," Amelia thought bitterly, glancing at Victor. If his family were suddenly saddled with $5 million debt for no reason, would he still be standing here making light of it? "Dad," Amelia began, "your executive assistant mentioned you haven't been well. Are you feeling any better now? If you heard, then why didn't you come home?" Benjamin thought, irritation simmering. What good were empty words of concern? People raised children hoping for support in their old age. At this rate, he'd be lucky if she didn't worry him into an early grave. Amelia Harper lowered her head, silent. Her loyalty clearly lay with William Hayes. Benjamin Harper scoffed. "I'm fine. Not dead yet. He was all right for now. But if something serious did happen, it would be too late for Amelia to make amends. Benjamin Harper's heart grew cold. He couldn't fathom why the daughter he'd raised favored such a worthless man. The sight of William Hayes grated on him more and more. He wished he could take a stick to him. But at an event like this, Benjamin couldn't lose his temper. He settled for a stony expression. "What are you doing standing there in the way? Get behind me." Amelia Harper moved quietly, William Hayes sticking close behind her. He wanted to speak, but felt anything he said in this situation would be wrong. The more said, the more potential for error. It was better to stay silent and let Amelia handle it. Just as Amelia Harper stepped behind Benjamin Harper, she felt a gaze on her from above. Or perhaps it was just her imagination. Looking up, her eyes instantly found Ethan. The sight of him made her eyes light up unconsciously. Why is Ethan here? Did he come with Victoria Harper? Nothing good ever came of Ethan and Victoria Harper appearing together. If Benjamin and Victor spotted him, they'd surely have security escort him out. But Amelia had other ideas. She wanted to lead Ethan to catch Victoria Harper red-handed, let him see the truth with his own eyes, and finally force him to give up on her. Amelia Harper was impulsive. One moment, she decided to commit to William Hayes. The next, any thought related to Ethan pushed William completely out of her mind. She didn't consider that even if Ethan wasn't with Victoria Harper, what difference did it make to her? Without Victoria, there would just be another woman. Ethan had plenty of options, and she wasn't one of them. Amelia Harper headed for the powder room. But halfway there, she changed direction and went to the front desk, asking the receptionist to look up Ethan's room information. By the time Amelia Harper returned, Victoria Harper had arrived, and Victor Harper was busy introducing her to the guests. Amelia Harper glanced toward the corner. So that's the mysterious boss of Yayan Group? He looked surprisingly ordinary, nothing compared to Ethan. Yet, there was something familiar about him, like she'd seen him somewhere before. Amelia had assumed the founder of such a massive corporation would be older, at least her father's age. She was surprised to see he looked quite young, likely only in his 30s. Amelia Harper scanned the upper level. Ethan was gone. Victor Harper led Victoria Harper over. "Victoria, this is the CEO of Yayan Group, Mr. Zhou." Victoria Harper inclined her head with a smile. "Mr. Zhou, a pleasure to finally meet you. I've heard so much about you." "Hello." He gave a slight nod. Victor Harper, focused on networking with Mr. Zhou, failed to notice the man's stiffened gaze and the slight twitch at the corner of his mouth upon seeing Victoria Harper. Seeing Amelia Harper return, Victor Harper, playing the role of the considerate uncle, beckoned her over. Opportunities to meet such influential figures were rare. Making connections couldn't hurt. "Amelia, come over and meet Mr. Zhou from Yayan Group." Not wanting to be outdone by Victoria Harper, Amelia stepped forward with composure. "Mr. Zhou, hello. My father and uncle speak of you often. Founding Yayan Group is truly impressive. Actually, my Aunt Victoria mentioned she knows you and offered to introduce us. Is that correct?" Victor Harper's expression flickered. Victoria definitely didn't know Mr. Zhou. If she did, she wouldn't have needed Victor's introduction. A little vanity was one thing, but brazenly lying like this was simply shameless. Mr. Zhou glanced briefly at Victoria Harper before his eyes settled back on Amelia. "Is that so? I don't recall." Amelia scoffed inwardly. "Just as I thought, Victoria doesn't have the connections. Perhaps my aunt was mistaken then, or maybe she confused you with someone else." Victor Harper quickly tried to smooth things over. "Mr. Zhou, please pay it no mind." "Not at all. It's my pleasure to meet you, Ms. Harper, tonight." Seeing Mr. Zhou's agreeable attitude, Victor Harper felt reassured that the evening's goal was secure. Amelia pressed further. "Mr. Zhou, I'm curious. Are you close with Ethan?" "Not particularly." "Then why did you help him like that?" Mr. Zhou replied coolly. "He's a friend of friend. My friend asked for a favor, so I obliged. Any further questions?" Amelia sensed something wasn't quite right, but she couldn't put her finger on it. Victoria Harper had quietly taken a seat beside Mr. Zhou. Picking up a flute from the champagne tower, she swirled the liquid. "Amelia, are you writing a book? Why all the questions?" Amelia opened her mouth to retort, but Victor Harper cut her off. "Amelia, come help me greet the other guests. Victoria, you keep Mr. Zhou company." Catching Victor's warning glance, Victoria nodded obediently. "All right." Victoria was certainly acting the part of a docile younger sister today. Victor Harper suddenly felt the stinging pain in his hand ease. Amelia, however, knew Victoria wasn't usually this easy to handle. Why was she being so compliant now? Could she actually be interested in Mr. Zhou? "Just as I thought," Amelia mused. Her supposed love for Ethan is all an act. Ethan needs to see her fawning over this man. It's pathetic. The moment Victor and Amelia walked away, Victoria pulled out her phone right in front of Mr. Joe and called Ethan. As soon as it connected, she purred. "Are you watching me again? Be a good boy and go back to your room." Watching Victoria hang up, Mr. Joe wore an indescribable expression. He discreetly rubbed the goosebumps that had risen on his arm. If he hadn't witnessed it himself, he'd never have believed the typically cold and aloof Victoria Harper had such a clingy side. "Ms. Harper," he said quietly, "all the drinks set before you have been drugged." If she drank all that, he thought, the dose could be dangerous. Mr. Joe was Victoria Harper's executive assistant. He often acted on her behalf when she preferred to remain behind the scenes, effectively making him her second-in-command. This woman was his boss. So, learning that Victor Harper intended to offer Victoria to him as a mistress, planning to practically gift-wrap her for a one-night stand at his room, had sent Mr. Joe's heart into overdrive. He knew it was all part of a charade, but he couldn't quell the nervous flutter in his chest. Joe Quan asked, "Harper Enterprises, how do you think I did tonight?" "Not bad. Remember this for Thanksgiving." This wasn't just any performance. He had to pull off the role of a man obsessed with Victoria Harper's beauty, eager, almost desperate, while still holding on to the dominant aura of a CEO, detached, arrogant, treating people like playthings. It had to be perfectly balanced. One misstep and it had come off as sleazy. Joe Quan modeled his expression and mannerisms after Victoria Harper herself. He'd been around long enough to handle big scenes like this, and only someone like him could portray the sharp, ruthless energy expected of Yang Group's boss. Judging from the stunned expressions on Victor and Amelia Harper's faces, it worked. Joe Quan couldn't hide the smirk tugging at his lips. Victoria Harper had to remind him, "Ease up on the smile. You look like an idiot." Victor Harper pressed his lips together. People nearby kept stealing glances in their direction, too obvious to go unnoticed. To keep up the act, Joe Quan leaned in close, lowering his head like they were sharing a private moment. "Harper Enterprises, the hallway and room surveillance has been wiped. What's the next step?" "No rush." Victoria Harper stared at her wine glass, lost in thought. After a moment, she looked toward William, her lips curling slightly, eyes dark with something dangerous. That look alone said it all. Victoria Harper was about to make a move. And if you crossed her, your night was about to go south. What's she planning? Find a way to send these drinks to William and Victor Harper. Victor Harper liked men, didn't he? Then she'd give him a proper gift. Landing someone like William, one of the hottest stars in the business, what a jackpot. Her words were laced with venom, like a death sentence dressed in silk. Even with her eyes closed, Victoria could feel the stares around her. To outsiders, she looked demure tonight, like a lamb being led to slaughter. Her phone buzzed twice. A DM from Ethan. The timing was just right. Seeing Victoria hadn't taken a drink yet, Victor Harper was getting impatient. He called over a few more people to toast Joe Quan, dragging William in as well. Under their intense gaze, Victoria picked up her glass and drank, and kept drinking. Joe Quan watched with alarm, but forced himself to stay composed, eventually shooting Victor a loaded smile. Victor misread it as a compliment and grew even more smug. If he could become the brother-in-law of Yang Group's future boss, things would finally turn around for him. Harper Enterprises looked glamorous on the surface, but it was rotting from within. One hit to the foundation, and the whole thing would collapse. He needed a powerhouse like Yang Group to prop him up. By 9:30, Victoria was thoroughly drunk, slumping onto the couch, barely able to sit upright. In her intoxication, she looked even more delicate, like a rare flower blooming in secret, impossible to resist. Her cheeks were flushed, lashes trembling as she lowered her gaze. Seeing the moment had come, Victor Harper put down his glass. "Mr. Joe, my sister's had too much. I'll have the bellman take her to her room." "All right." A bellman came over and effortlessly helped Victoria to her feet. She couldn't even stand, her face unnaturally red, her mind clouded. She mumbled, "Where are we going?" Victor Harper answered, "Taking you back to your room to sleep." "Okay, sleep." Everyone watched. Some instantly understood. Others stared, curious. Among the former were Amelia Harper and William. Amelia's eyes followed Victoria all the way into the Rosewood Grand Elevator. She'd heard of the dark, dirty things that happened in Hollywood, but this was the first time it was happening to someone she knew. Her uncle, setting up her aunt, delivering her to a stranger's bed in exchange for money and favors. And she just stood there, watching. Worse, some part of her even felt like Victoria deserved it. It's not like this was Victoria Harper's first time in the Rosewood Grand Hotel. Who knew how many men she'd slept with? She was probably rotten to the core by now. What's one more? She didn't deserve Ethan anyway. This was her fate. Honestly, being offered to someone like Joe, powerful, good-looking, not some pot-bellied old creep, wasn't even the worst outcome. She might even thank them later. Amelia clenched her fists, body trembling, face going pale, overwhelmed with emotion. William called out, "Amelia!" She snapped out of it, guilt flickering in her eyes. "What? Your uncle and that Mr. Joe, did they strike some kind of deal?" William had seen this kind of thing too often in the industry. Young stars forced into backroom deals. Get them drunk, send them upstairs, record the whole thing, then use it as blackmail. Rinse and repeat. Some even started seeing it as the norm. One night, one shortcut, and suddenly they're driving luxury cars and raking in money. He watched it unfold like a soap opera. Joe Quan left not long after Victoria was taken upstairs. William, full of schadenfreude, felt no sympathy. He looked down on Ethan, and even more on Victoria Harper, the woman who used to like him. They ruined his wedding. Now it was their turn to suffer. Let Victoria be reduced to a toy for men. Didn't Ethan like her? Well, now he'd get to see her in someone else's bed. That had to sting. But what could Ethan do? No power, no influence. The only reason his Twitter scandal got handled was thanks to Yain Group. And now, their boss had set his sights on Ethan's woman. All he could do was stand aside like a good little simp and maybe even clap when told. The thought thrilled William. This was justice. If Victoria Harper ends up with Mr. Joe, Benjamin Harper's financial troubles are over. Might even take care of my debts, too. The more he thought about it, the more pleased he became. Sacrifice one Victoria Harper, and everyone else benefits? What a deal. He couldn't help but blurt out, "This is perfect." Amelia stared at him. "You really think this is a good thing?" "Why wouldn't it be?" William said. "Benjamin's happy. Your uncle's happy. And you've always hated Victoria Harper, haven't you? She hit you last time. This is karma. Don't feel guilty. Don't blame yourself. This is just her destiny. If she's lucky, maybe she'll marry Mr. Joe and pop out a kid." William shared the same mindset as Victor Harper. Women like Victoria had no real value unless they latched on a powerful man. Just a pretty vase waiting for a collector. She had nothing going for her. No job. Living off Thanksgiving bonuses, spending like crazy, stirring up scandal with Ethan on a dating show. William laid it out plainly. But honestly, I doubt Mr. Joe's planning to marry her. He probably just thinks she's hot and wants a little fun. You marry a woman with a clean past, not someone like her. Feeling relaxed about the bright future ahead, William let go of his inhibitions. He indulged freely, finding the fine food and drinks of the Grand Hotel much more to his liking. Having gotten a bit carried away, William started feeling dizzy and hot. "Amelia, I want to get a room and rest. It's too late to head back tonight, right? Besides, you don't work tomorrow since it's Saturday." Amelia had her own agenda. She planned to knock on Ethan's door in the morning and taken to catch them in the act. Hearing William mention resting, a nearby bellman stepped forward. "Sir, would you like me to show you to the lounge?" William nodded and, swaying unsteadily, was helped away. Amelia didn't watch him leave. With William gone, she wanted to have a proper talk with Benjamin Harper. But when they were face to face, she found herself unsure how to begin. Finally, Benjamin Harper broke the silence. "I hear you found a job as an executive assistant. How's it going?" "It's good." "Is the money easy?" "No." "What's the monthly pay?" "The intern salary is $6,000. For a complete newbie, an intern salary that high was actually quite impressive. $6,000 a month, and that's if you make no mistakes," Benjamin continued. "After rent, living expenses, daily costs. How much is actually left in your hands? Do you have any idea how high property prices are? They average $3,000 per square foot. Your monthly salary can't even afford a single square foot of bathroom space. A single apartment can cost $300 million. With the $1, $5 billion William owes. How many apartments like that could be bought?" He leaned in slightly. "He owes $1, $5 million, not just 100,000. You two could work for lifetimes and never pay it off. With him, he's just dead weight. He can't contribute. He just forces you to slave away earning money. Eventually, debt collectors will be at your door. Do you really want that kind of life forever? A lifetime stuck in a cramped Brooklyn loft, no car, no property, struggling endlessly just for that $6,000 a month." It felt like a hopeless, bottomless pit. She hated this life. She still longed for the days of being chauffeured in a Harper limousine, splurging freely, living in a mansion with personal chefs and housemaids, buying six-figure jewelry on a whim, where a single dress cost $6,000. Benjamin Harper had laid it all out. Amelia's stubbornness stemmed from her belief that he would eventually relent, and take her back. She acted with impunity, relying on her status as the sole heiress of Harper Enterprises and banking on her father's inability to truly let her suffer. In this Cold War between them, she was waiting for her father to yield first. After all, she thought she had plenty of time. But life away from home was proving unbearable. Each day dragged on like a year. Benjamin Harper didn't push her anymore. He simply told her to think it over carefully and come back to him once she had made up her mind. Until then, he wouldn't allow her home. Compromising now would lead to endless issues, and he would lose all authority as her father. What if William's debt could be resolved? Amelia asked. Benjamin Harper replied. Then we can talk once you've actually resolved it. But for them to solve it on their own? Utterly impossible. By the time the father and daughter finished their conversation, most guests had left. Even Victor, having drunk too much, had retired to the lounge. But was this plan with Victoria Harper truly foolproof? Amelia wondered. Victor claimed he had personally escorted Mr. Joquan to the room and heard Victoria's voice inside. He assured her that nothing could go wrong at their own Rosewood Grand Hotel, with their own staff involved. Still uneasy, Amelia went upstairs for a quick peek. She saw security personnel stationed in the hallway near the room, their presence a clear do not approach warning. Afraid of looking suspicious, Amelia quickly left. Amelia didn't sleep that night. She lay awake, staring blankly at her phone, her thoughts oscillating between Ethan and her father's harsh words. Any fondness she once had for William was long gone. She used to see him as her childhood sweetheart, almost an older brother figure, two lonely souls who had found light in each other. But now, that light had dimmed, flickering like a dying candle flame. Since being with William, she'd realized he wasn't the person she'd built him up to be. His character was questionable. This was especially clear from his comments about Victoria Harper earlier. Although Amelia despised Victoria and wouldn't mind seeing her downfall, hearing William speak that way left a sour taste in her mouth. It felt deeply wrong. If sacrificing Amelia ever benefited him, wouldn't William trade her away without a second thought? The moment she was inside the room, Victoria Harper was instantly alert. Her eyes were sharp and clear, betraying none of the drunken stupor she had feigned earlier. A moment later, Mr. Joquan came in. From outside the closed door, Victor's voice could be heard. Mr. Joe, have a wonderful evening. Mr. Joe quickly shut the door and turned to Victoria Harper. Boss, are you all right? Victoria, sitting composedly on the sofa, casually smoothed her skirt. I'm perfectly fine. But you drank so many of those peppermint oil capsules. Are you sure you're all right? I took the antidote beforehand. Just goes to show why she's the boss, Mr. Joquan thought. Her planning is even more meticulous than mine. Even with the antidote, the large amount she'd ingested still induced heat and dizziness. It was only Victoria Harper's formidable willpower keeping her conscious. Anyone else would likely have succumbed to sleep by now. Mr. Joquan kept watch on the hallway. Once certain it was empty, he informed Victoria, Boss, it's clear outside. You can go find Mr. Johnson now. Yes, it's about time, Victoria replied. Any longer, and he'll start getting anxious. Mentioning Ethan brought an irrepressible smile to her lips, transforming her previously shadowed face into something bright and captivating. Victoria slipped on a hotel bathrobe and stepped out. She quickly mussed her hair and, putting on a tearful expression, knocked on Ethan's door. Ethan had been on the verge of going to find her himself. Hearing the knock, he flung the door open to find Victoria leaning heavily against the wall, gasping for breath. Her face was unnaturally flushed, her eyes glistened with tears, and soft moans of distress escaped her lips. The moment she saw Ethan, she seemed to collapse weakly against him, clinging helplessly as she sobbed pitifully. Ethan, I feel terrible. They gave me those peppermint oil capsules. Ethan stiffened, his hand automatically going to support the small of her back. He could feel the unnatural heat radiating from her skin. Along with the heat came her scent. Victoria looked up at him like a lost kitten, her large eyes brimming with moisture, filled with a pitiful plea. Ethan, Ethan, she murmured, please, help me. I feel so bad. Victoria pressed herself against him insistently. Despite supposedly being weakened by the peppermint oil capsules, she pushed with surprising force, causing Ethan to stumble back into his room as the door slammed shut behind him. The slam of the door seemed to jolt Ethan back to his senses. I'll take you to the Mayo Clinic, he said firmly. Touching her now would be taking advantage of her situation. I'm not going to the Mayo Clinic. I need you to help me, Victoria insisted, seemingly reading his hesitation. If you won't give me what I need, she whispered, I'll just have to take it myself. Victoria Harper let the bathrobe slide from her shoulders, pooling at her feet like fallen pomegranate blossoms. Tonight, she breathed, stepping closer. Do whatever you desire. Don't hold back. Don't think for a second you're taking advantage of me. Ethan, I need you. Please, just hold me tight. I feel so terrible. Ethan felt as though pure fire had just thrown itself into his arms, hot enough to sear through his clothes. Ethan's Adam's apple bobbed as his dark gaze deepened, the restless emotion inside him effortlessly stirred by her. He fought to hold back his reaction and asked, Victoria, you've been drugged. Do you know what you're doing? Yes, I've been drugged. All I know is I want you. Ethan, please. I'm begging you. She pleaded softly, tears slipping down her flushed cheeks, her voice hoarse with desperation. She was like a kitten seeking affection, rubbing herself against him, bare feet stepping on top of his, nuzzling his jaw, craving his comfort, his touch, trying to get even closer. They were already pressed together, close enough to feel each other's warmth and heartbeat, but it wasn't enough for Victoria. She clung to him like someone drowning, desperately grasping at the last piece of driftwood. Ethan, I love you. I really, really love you. Her breath caressed his chin, her lips just a whisper away from his. Her misty eyes sought reassurance, her hesitant expression as if she wouldn't dare kiss him unless he gave her permission. It was like a flood breaking through a dam. Once it started, it was unstoppable. Ethan lowered his head. Victoria, look at me. He stared down at the woman beneath him. She widened her eyes, trying to focus, looking even more pitiful. He leaned in. I love you too. I'll take responsibility. The moment the words left his mouth, he scooped her up and carried her to the bed, lacing his fingers through hers. The taste of his sweet fruit wine on her lips lingered on his tongue, and he let out a low groan. Water trickled down the frosted shower glass, and the bed rocked like a drifting boat. That night, their tangled breaths composed a symphony of desire. If the night could be described by a song, it would be booty music. In the early hours, Victoria's hair was damp with sweat. Ethan, on the other hand, looked refreshed. He watched Victoria frown from exhaustion, kissed the space between her brows, and gently wiped her down with a fresh towel. She was completely worn out, her eyelids heavy. Through half-lidded eyes, she watched Ethan moving around, a warm feeling blooming in her chest. She reached out with a hoarse voice. Hold me. Her arms were soft and pale, like porcelain. Ethan took her wrist and gave her a gentle massage. Still feeling bad? I just want to sleep in your arms. Tonight, Ethan had been like an ox plowing a field, relentless and full of energy. Usually so reserved and serious, he turned out to be far more passionate than he let on, and once he started, it was hard to stop. Victoria was aching all over, like she'd climbed 200 flights of stairs. Still, she was quite satisfied. She'd thrown herself at him. If she still couldn't get her way, she would have doubted whether Ethan was even a man. Thankfully, he hadn't let her down. Her bold move had worked. Women were always on the back foot in situations like this. Afterward, all she wanted was to laze around, be cuddled, be held. Only wrapped in his arms did she feel safe. Victoria was starting to feel a little spoiled. She had been the one pinning Ethan down at first. After making sure she was clean and comfortable, Ethan finally took a shower himself. Once warm, he climbed back into bed and pulled Victoria into his arms. The moment he held her, he froze. He'd dressed her in a bathrobe, but now her body was bare, slippery like a little eel against him. The robe's too thick and hot. I hate sleeping in the Rosewood Grand Hotel bathrobes, Victoria murmured, her voice a little nasal and lazy. Ethan touched the back of her head and cleared his throat. Go to sleep. You've had a long night. Not too hard at all, she replied, curling into his embrace. I want more next time. Ethan. After breaking through that last barrier, their relationship took off. Victoria could hold him however she wanted now. She'd once imagined kissing the hollow of his throat, touching the birthmark at the nape of his neck, tracing his long fingers, and now she had. She was hopelessly in love with him. Even though her body was exhausted, her mind was wide awake. Meanwhile, Ethan fell asleep shortly after wrapping his arms around her. He'd been drained from worrying about her and barely rested the night before. During everything, he'd barely shown any signs of fatigue aside from sweating. Victoria peeked her head out from under the blanket, her eyes roaming his face in the early light. A strange sense of disbelief crept into her heart. She wanted to touch him, to make sure he was real, but she didn't dare disturb his rest. Eventually, sleep crept in. Listening to Ethan's steady heartbeat, she drifted off in his arms. As the first light of dawn seeped through the curtains, Ethan stirred. Though they hadn't slept long, he felt surprisingly refreshed. He looked at Victoria curled up in his arms, eyes locking onto her face. In his past life, he never imagined he'd ever be lying in bed with Victoria like this. He remembered how they met again after he was reborn, on a dating reality show. Running into his ex like that was surreal. At the time, he thought it was just fate messing with him. But in reality, it was Victoria who had gone through all kinds of obstacles just to stand in front of him again, reintroducing herself as contestant No. 1. Victoria, his match. She'd given him a haircut, they'd gone on their first date, attended the birthday charity ball together, he'd carried her on his back. So many memories, packed into such a short time. Without even realizing it, she had settled deep into his heart. Snuggled in his arms, she looked like a sleepy little bunny. He couldn't help but kiss her hair. How could someone be this adorable? She was lying beside him, perfectly content, small enough to fit in his arms. When he opened his eyes, all he saw was her. He couldn't bear to be rough with her, terrified he might hurt her. Even though he'd been careful, her pale skin still showed marks from their night. This peaceful moment, he never wanted it to end. Until a knock sounded at the door. This was a VIP suite. Normally, no one would disturb them, which meant whoever was knocking had to be someone unexpected. The sound woke Victoria. She blinked sleepily, rubbing her eyes as she stirred. Who is it? Ethan gently comforted her. I'll go check. He was just about to get up when Victoria suddenly clung to his arm. Let me. I want to go. She probably already had a good guess about who was at the door. She bent down, picked up Ethan's shirt from the floor, and slipped it on. It hung loosely, brushing the tops of her thighs. Victoria Harper slipped into Ethan Johnson's shirt, something she wanted to do for a long time. Ethan was a head taller than her, with a broad frame, so his shirts were long enough on her to serve as a nightgown. She pulled her hair free from the collar, her peripheral vision catching Ethan's unblinking gaze. Her heart warmed, and she quickly leaned in, planting a loud peck on his cheek. I'll get the door. Ethan touched his face, watching Victoria head towards the door, her bare legs swinging. Such unconscious seduction. How could she answer the door dressed like that? He quickly called out, put on a robe. No rush. Let me see who it is first, Victoria replied dismissively, already at the door. The VIP suites were soundproof and highly secure, equipped with cameras linked to a small screen inside. Victoria glanced at the screen. Sure enough, it was Amelia Harper. That woman was like a persistent ghost. Although this Rosewood Grand Hotel was under Harper Enterprises, Victoria Harper held the most shares. She was the real boss behind the scenes. The Rosewood Grand Hotel was staffed with her people, so she knew everything that happened within its walls. Like how Amelia Harper had secretly inquired at the front desk about Ethan Johnson's room number last night. At the time, Victoria had worried Amelia might ruin her plans. Fortunately, luck was on her side. All her long planning hadn't been in vain. Seeing Amelia about to ring the doorbell, Victoria yanked the door open. Ethan Johnson. Amelia's voice froze. After knocking for ages, the door finally opened. Amelia had expected to see Ethan, but who would have thought the person opening the door would be Victoria Harper? She stood rigidly in the doorway, her expression turning to stone. The rest of her words caught in her throat like a fishbone. Her mouth fell slightly open, her breathing suddenly shallow, forcing her to gasp for air. How could it be Victoria Harper? Why was she in Ethan Johnson's room? Did she get the wrong information? Victoria's room wasn't here, was it? Shouldn't she be in bed with Mr. Joe right now? Or had she finished early and come back? A barrage of questions assaulted her mind. She couldn't bear the thought that Victoria had spent the night with Ethan Johnson. Victoria didn't chase her away, but leaned against the wall. Looking for Ethan Johnson? He's still asleep. You might have to wait a while. Victoria watched as cracks of fury appeared on Amelia's petrified face. Within 2 seconds, Amelia's eyes reddened, her face drained of color as if she'd fallen gravely ill. Only then did Amelia register the shirt Victoria was wearing, the black button-down Ethan had worn yesterday. She had dated Ethan for 3 years, lived with him even. She knew he favored custom-made shirts and suits from a particular tailor. Victoria stood there in Ethan's shirt, her long, pale legs exposed, suggestive marks visible on her neck. It was obvious last night had been intense. Victoria Harper, how dare you? How dare I not? Victoria cut her off coolly, deliberately provoking her. We're both single. Unlike you, a married woman. Shouldn't you be focused on your own man instead of coveting someone else's? Speaking of which, Ethan and I getting together today is all thanks to your uncle slipping me those peppermint oil capsules last night. You came knocking on Ethan's door so eagerly today. Why? To tell him I'd been defiled, so you could bring him to catch me in the act? Sorry to disappoint you. All right, don't just call him Ethan Johnson anymore. You should call him Uncle now. Your uncle is still sleeping, Don't disturb him. I was planning on going back for a bit more sleep myself. Victoria's words easily ignited Amelia's fury. Jealousy and hatred twisted her features. Her ears rang, and for a long moment, she couldn't speak. Her only impulse was to strike Victoria, as if only that could shut her up. She raised her right hand, but before it could fall, Ethan Johnson appeared, seemingly out of nowhere. He pulled Victoria behind him, intercepting Amelia's hand and forcefully shoving it away. Like a gust of wind, Amelia lost her balance and stumbled sideways, crashing heavily onto the floor. Seeing Ethan so protective of Victoria felt like being force-fed a handful of thumbtacks. Every breath she took seemed to shred her mouth and throat, drawing blood. Her heart felt like it had been gouged out with a shovel, boiled in scalding water, plunged into ice, and then sliced into pieces. It was death by 1,000 cuts, agony like 10,000 arrows piercing her heart. The hallway light illuminated Amelia's deathly pale face. When Victoria had spoken, the reality hadn't fully sunk in for Amelia. Not until now, seeing Ethan emerge from the room to defend Victoria. He wore only a bathrobe, the marks on his neck and chest even more numerous than Victoria's. Her heart plummeted. A profound panic seized her body, the kind you feel when you step into emptiness and fall from a great height in a nightmare. She didn't hear what Victoria said next to Amelia. She only saw Victoria clinging to Ethan's arm, beaming. The person standing beside Ethan Johnson should have been her. The devastating blow blurred the line between dream and reality. Ethan Johnson, how could you sleep with Victoria Harper? How could you do this to me? She accused Ethan of faithlessness, as if he were her cheating husband and Victoria the shameless mistress. Didn't you see how Victoria was fawning all over Mr. Joe last night? She's just a loose woman. Slap. The blow snapped Amelia's head to the side. Ethan had slapped her. He wouldn't tolerate anyone insulting his girlfriend, man or woman. Perhaps human nature was inherently flawed, Ethan thought. People are born with certain traits, and life only amplifies them. Amelia, for instance, could never see the good in others, taking kindness for granted, a fundamental warp in her character. Amelia Harper, Ethan said coldly, I don't want to curse you out, not because I harbor any old feelings, but because there's no satisfaction in insulting an imbecile incapable of reason. Also, let me tell you this responsibly. Victoria Harper is purer than anyone. She is the perfect girlfriend in my eyes. If you insult her like that again, you can choose between the Mayo Clinic and the Metropolitan Police Department. Amelia had truly crossed Ethan's line. He wasn't a fool. He understood everything. He used to think Amelia merely had character flaws, that her selfishness stemmed from a poor upbringing. But now he saw she was malicious too. As a woman herself, she knew what reputation meant. She knew Victoria had been drugged with peppermint oil capsules. She knew Victoria was supposed to be sent to a man's bed in exchange for benefits. Had Victoria ever done anything to wrong her over the years? Why did Amelia hate her to the bone? Faced with a woman about to be victimized, even a stranger wouldn't have been as indifferent as she was. Was it simply because Victoria liked him that Amelia watched coldly from the sidelines as Victoria was drugged? Harmed. This wasn't about following the law anymore. It was about basic human decency. Jealousy could utterly destroy a person's humanity, constantly dragging down their standards, lowering their morals, making them push others' boundaries. Amelia had considered what might happen to Victoria, but she still chose to watch coldly, building her own happiness on someone else's suffering, whether voluntary or not. As long as Victoria slept with another man, it would confirm Amelia's suspicions, giving her a sense of accomplishment she could flaunt to Ethan. See, I told you she was trash like that. Wasn't I right? From her perspective, she stood on the moral high ground, helping Ethan see Victoria for who she truly was. She had always believed Victoria wasn't good enough for Ethan. Once he understood, he would thank her. Even if they couldn't be husband and wife, perhaps they could bury the hatchet and become friends. She was far too arrogant, taking this outcome for granted, even seeing it as her bestowing a favor. She didn't think wanting it all was shameful. It was human nature, a rational expectation. Ethan, how can you just take Victoria's word for it? Look at her. She's obviously faking it. She's manipulating you. She just wanted to sleep with you this way, to make you take responsibility for her. Can't you see her schemes? Amelia wasn't stupid. After a moment of disorientation, things clicked into place. Why was Ethan here last night? Victoria must have arranged it beforehand. Victoria was too calculating. She must have had people stationed all over the Rosewood Grand Hotel. Otherwise, how could she have escaped? Maybe she knew all along that Victor had drugged the drink and deliberately drank it. As this thought struck her, Amelia's expression froze, then shifted to fear. This meant Victoria had leverage on them. Just as she grasped this, Ethan spoke. You expect me to believe you instead of her? Do you know what your behavior makes you? An accomplice. They're the perpetrators, but you knew and didn't report it. You can't escape responsibility either. Ethan was furious, his eyes glaring at Amelia like a wild beast's, the veins on his arms bulging. If Victor were here, he would have crippled him. Victoria stood behind him, wrapping her arms around his, her fingertips soothingly stroking a prominent vein. Just like the man I chose, she thought. Even his anger is captivating. Makes me want to kiss him. Thinking it, Victoria did it. She stood on her tiptoes and, right in front of Amelia, kissed the corner of Ethan's lips. Afterward, she leaned against him lazily and said, Amelia, instead of worrying about my boyfriend here, maybe you should go worry about your husband. Oh, right? And where's my little niece? I remember he was here last night too, wasn't he? How come he's not with you? If he saw you knocking on another man's door first thing in the morning, he'd probably lose it with you. You should hurry up and find him. Don't let him get the wrong idea. Hatred filled Amelia's eyes. She had every right to hate Victoria, who had stolen her most precious treasure. But whose fault was that? Amelia hadn't cherished him. She'd mistaken a treasure for trash. She hated her now, and there would be more hatred to come. This was just the beginning. Amelia swayed, almost losing her footing, too weak even to curse. Ethan's slap had completely intimidated her. She was scared, not because the slap hurt that much, but because she could tangibly feel Ethan drifting further and further away to a point beyond reconciliation. However much she hated Victoria, Ethan hated her just as much. After warning Amelia, Victoria ignored her completely, tugging Ethan's arm. So sleepy. I want to sleep more, but I ache a little. It hurts too much to sleep. Can you give me a massage later? Okay. Then let's go back to sleep. Across from them, Amelia looked ready to collapse, like a delicate white flower in a storm, easily snapped. Words could kill, too. Once you knew your enemy's weakness, words became knives, stabbing them until they bled. Victoria had no interest in watching Amelia's pathetic state. She had more important things to do. Victoria took Ethan's hand and, without much effort, led him back into the room, easily placating him. She was the one who closed the door. As the gap narrowed, her gaze towards Amelia held no triumph or provocation, just a fleeting glance, as if Amelia were insignificant in her eyes, as fragile as a speck of dust, gone with a puff of air. Once the door was shut, Victoria grew bolder. She wrapped her arms around Ethan's neck, her back pressed against the door behind her. She looked just like those internet videos of kittens cuddling up to golden retrievers. She moved to kiss Ethan, but he turned away. Victoria paused for a second, then smiled. Angry, Ethan's face was stern. He didn't speak. Victoria knew what he was angry about. Her acting on her own, not telling him beforehand, putting herself in danger. She'd angered him, so she had to coax him herself. Only after coaxing him properly could she get what she wanted. I took the antidote yesterday, Victoria said, watching Ethan's expression closely. She quickly added, but the drug was too strong. The antidote didn't really work. Ethan, don't you ever put yourself in danger like that again. I know. I was just thinking you were here, right? And Mr. Joe is someone I know. I had bellmen stationed everywhere in the Rosewood Grand Hotel. I made thorough preparations. If you were so prepared, why did you come knocking on my door last night, asking for my help? He couldn't dwell on it. The thought made fear creep up his spine. What if Victoria had knocked on the wrong door last night, or run into someone dangerous along the way? Could she have defended herself in her state? You couldn't prepare for every eventuality, only fear the worst. It was precisely because he loved her that Ethan felt so terrified. Victoria muttered under her breath, because you were part of my plan. What are you muttering? Had you said that out loud? For the first time, Victoria felt a twinge of apprehension. Just as Amelia had said, she was manipulating Ethan. That Thanksgiving night, she hadn't been content just kissing the birthmark on his neck. She wanted to get closer, to break down that final barrier, to become exclusively his. She wanted to make a move on Ethan, but he hadn't been willing. So, she had to resort to a method like this to force his hand. Ethan couldn't bear to see her suffer, and besides, he liked her. This month of proximity had truly given her the advantage. From now on, the moon belonged to her. I didn't have anyone take me to the Mayo Clinic because there's a good show today. I want to go watch the drama unfold. Will you come with me later, okay? Ethan gave a non-committal Are you still angry now? Not anymore. Then kiss me. Victoria tightened her arms around his neck, swaying slightly as she demanded a kiss. Afraid she'd fall, Ethan had no choice but to grip her waist. Victoria's waist was slender, without an ounce of fat. Last night, he had held her waist just like this, watching her cry out, unable to bear it. The memory made Ethan's eyes darken. He leaned down and gave her a kiss. Victoria decided it wasn't enough and clung to him, wanting more, seemingly oblivious to the danger. Her thighs were faintly visible beneath the hem of her shirt, and she had a habit of hooking them around Ethan's waist. Even though she wasn't feeling well, she still loved teasing him. They had stayed up too late last night, so Ethan didn't dare tire her out further. After soothing Victoria Harper's little mood, he called the Rosewood Grand Hotel room service to have a clean set of clothes sent up. Ethan reeled off Victoria Harper's sizes one by one, and Victoria Harper watched him with an amorous gaze. As soon as he hung up, she pounced, tackling Ethan onto the bed. "Mr. Johnson, smooth moves. Took you just one night to learn my clothing sizes. Stop fooling around." Ethan patted her back. "Do you need help getting washed up?" He'd already given her a quick sponge bath last night, worried she'd be uncomfortable sleeping otherwise. She just needed to wash her face, brush her teeth, and get dressed. Victoria Harper lay thoughtfully on his chest. "No need. I could do it myself. I'm not helpless, you know. If you do everything for me, you'll get tired too." Ethan replied in a low voice. "I'm not tired. I know you're not tired. A young man like you has plenty of stamina, endless energy." Those familiar words, Victoria Harper had sent him that exact message during the first heartbeat signal segment when they were filming the show. Even back then, he'd sensed she wasn't just complimenting his physical endurance. Thinking about the show reminded Ethan of the contract he'd signed. Now that he'd broken it, the penalty fee couldn't be avoided. "I'll call the director. You go get washed up first." By the time Victoria Harper came out, a Rosewood Grand Hotel attendant had already delivered the clothes, along with a serving of oatmeal with bacon bits. She slipped off her bathrobe and got dressed right in front of Ethan, asking as she did, "Did you finish your call with the director?" "Yeah." "What did you two talk about?" "We discussed the contract penalty. You're my girlfriend now." The production crew's rules state that relationships can only be confirmed in the finale, and dating isn't allowed inside or outside the show before then. Otherwise, there's a penalty fee. I violated the agreement, so it's only right that I pay. That rule was originally put in place mainly to restrain Victoria Harper. You had to admit, the director had foresight. But despite all his precautions, he hadn't expected unforeseen events during filming. Once off the show, Victoria Harper was like a wild horse finally let loose. After holding back for so many years, she wasn't going to miss her chance. Although the show wasn't live streaming on Twitch any more recently, its popularity hadn't waned. In fact, it had increased, all thanks to the buzz surrounding Ethan. Things like the public humiliation at Amelia Harper's wedding, righteously sending his own parents to Springfield Correctional Facility. It was twist after twist. Those who had wronged him were meeting increasingly miserable fates. Netizens joked that Ethan had some kind of mystical power about him. Videos and photos of Ethan were being widely shared with captions like, "Share this Ethan from Mercury retrograde to retreat, petty people to disappear, and romance to blossom." The roadblock CP of Ethan and Victoria Harper frequently hit Twitter trends, currently ranking first on the CP charts, surpassing even celebrity couples in popularity. The production crew released quite a few behind-the-scenes clips based on the viewer-voted CP rankings, and they'd also edited 2 more main episodes. They hadn't watched the latest episode yet. Once things settled down, they'd go back and watch it cuddled up together. Participating in this reality show felt incredibly fortunate. It was Ethan's first time filming a variety show, and he'd met the person he could spend the rest of his life with. If he hadn't joined the show, who knows when he would have realized Victoria Harper's feelings for him. You could say this show documented the entire process of him and Victoria Harper falling in love. He believed that in the future, when they were old and gray, they would look back on it fondly. Ethan sat on the bed while Victoria Harper stood before him, running her fingers through the hair at the nape of his neck. "Did the director say anything about you?" "No. He said he was busy watching a Twitch stream, and we discussed this in person later. No idea what Twitch stream he's watching." "Are you curious?" Ethan grabbed her waist and pulled her onto his lap. "A little." Not much could pique the director's interest. Victoria Harper glanced at the time and had a pretty good guess. "I know what Twitch stream he's watching. Let's go see it live." Victoria Harper swung her legs off his lap and stood up, urging Ethan to get changed. Though curious, Ethan didn't ask further, guessing it probably had something to do with Harper Enterprises. Victoria Harper didn't hide anything around him. She was her truest self. Even at 27, she could be like a young girl, unable to conceal her thoughts, a mischievous grin playing on her face. They didn't even have time to sit down and eat the oatmeal with bacon bits. They each grabbed a sandwich and headed out, eating as they walked. The room was soundproof, but once they stepped outside, they heard a commotion. They were on the 8th floor. The noise was coming from downstairs. Victoria Harper said, "Let's go to the 6th floor." They got into the Rosewood Grand Elevator, and Ethan pressed the button for the 6th floor. As soon as the doors opened, they saw a huge crowd gathered in one area, packing it completely solid. There were Rosewood Grand Hotel staff, guests, passers-by, some people Victor Harper had invited last night, and even reporters. Those who couldn't squeeze and were standing on tiptoe, craning their necks to hear, holding their phones high, live streaming on Twitch. The lucky ones who got inside were witnessing the live event, and spectacular didn't even begin to describe it. Ethan still didn't know what was happening when he heard Victor Harper's furious shouting from within the crowd. "Stop filming. Get the hell out." Security personnel were struggling to maintain order, but it was useless. People were seeing what they came to see. Ethan, being tall, could see over the crowd. The main characters inside were Victor Harper, William Hayes, Amelia Harper, Benjamin Harper. Amelia Harper looked completely devastated, as if she'd lost her soul, her face even paler than before. Someone accidentally jostled her, and she fell to the ground, her hand getting stepped on. It hurt, but the pain in her heart was far worse. It was already shattered, aching to the point of numbness. This had to be the worst day of her life. She had gone looking for Ethan, only for Victoria Harper to answer the door, wearing Ethan's shirt and bluntly telling her what had happened last night. Ethan had even slapped her to defend Victoria Harper. After that door closed, Amelia Harper stood there for a long time. Even though the door was soundproof, she felt as if she could hear sounds coming from inside. She imagined Ethan holding Victoria Harper on the bed, kissing her, possessing her in countless ways. He was so gentle. Surely he wouldn't want to hurt her. The imaginings nearly drove her mad. As if her body was trying to save itself, her legs moved backward uncontrollably until she hit the wall. Then, steadying herself against it, she fled the area like a fugitive. Who could she turn to at a time like this? Her first thought was William Hayes. She went to William Hayes' room. The door opened, and she saw a scene that utterly shattered her worldview. William Hayes and Victor Harper were lying naked together. The room was a mess. It was obvious what had transpired. She almost instinctively gagged, a wave of visceral nausea washing over her. After Amelia Harper pushed the door open further, people started gathering at the entrance. Her mind was in turmoil, and she didn't notice anything unusual at first. If she had been thinking clearly, she would have shut the door immediately. Instead, she let out a piercing scream. William Hayes woke up first. Being younger, his reactions were quicker. He saw Amelia Harper first, then Victor Harper beside him. He shuddered violently, so startled he fell off the bed. As he took in the marks on his body, sickening fragments of memory surfaced. "Amelia, listen to me. Let me explain. It's not what you think." William didn't have time to cover himself. Naked, he reached out to grab Amelia, desperate to explain. Amelia recoiled. "Don't come near me. William, you're disgusting." The words escaped her instinctively. Her face turned ashen as she clamped a hand over her mouth, fighting back nausea. What was Amelia disgusted about? He was the one who should be disgusted. He'd just attended a party, had too much to drink, and needed a rest. Why did he wake up naked in bed with Victor Harper? The various aches and discomforts in his body were stark reminders of everything that happened last night. For the first time, William was so ashamed and furious he wanted to die. And now, to be caught red-handed by Amelia, he couldn't even pretend nothing had happened. William's mind short-circuited, his thoughts a jumbled mess. Just as he was wondering what on earth to do, something even more terrifying occurred. He heard voices outside the door. Before he could cover up, he saw a crowd gathered at the doorway. The noise also woke Victor Harper. He had just as many marks on his body as William. Waking up, he felt dizzy and disoriented, momentarily unsure of where he was. When he saw the crowd packed at the door, he was stunned. He was about to get up and shout at them, but then realized he wasn't wearing any clothes. He quickly wrapped the blanket around himself and pressed the hotel service button, asking the front desk to send security. Experience told him not to panic in situations like this, to stay calm. Only a clear head could find a good solution. But could someone tell him why his niece was in his room first thing in the morning? And William, why was he naked and kneeling on the floor? He remembered drinking too much last night. It was very late, and a bellman had helped him to his room. The room was dark, and he briefly wondered why the lights weren't on, until he felt someone else in the bed. He'd been hot and somewhat delirious, just wanting something stimulating, and had momentarily forgotten the circumstances. This kind of thing wasn't entirely new. People had been sent to his bed before, and others had offered themselves willingly. When you're starving and there's a delicious piece of roast meat right in front of you, who could resist? Now, fully awake, Victor Harper was filled with regret. He really should have resisted. What kind of mess was this? What was even more humiliating was being seen by Amelia and so many other people. Victor Harper had only one thought. This absolutely couldn't get out. If this scandal spread, the Harper family would be finished. Amelia, go close the door. It was too late. Almost instantly, more people surged forward from outside. Hotel security couldn't possibly arrive fast enough. Victor Harper caught sight of a few acquaintances, their faces showing shock. Bystanders held up their phones, filming the spectacle. In no time, reporters arrived too, radiating malice. Most of their expressions mirrored Amelia's, as if they were looking at disgusting maggots. It was over. Completely over. Victor Harper felt like he was being roasted over a fire, unable to hide, unable to escape. If only people staying in the hotel had seen it, that might have been manageable. But why had reporters shown up so quickly? Victor Harper was an idiot. He instantly understood this wasn't an accident, but a setup. Someone was targeting him. What am I seeing first thing in the morning? On my eyes. I sent that, William. Didn't he just marry Amelia last month? So William has this kind of preference too. Huh? Plays for both teams? Isn't his taste a bit intense? Who topped and who bottomed? Give us the details. Can't ship this. Really can't ship this. Younger Uncle CEO and his celebrity little darling husband. Her uncle on one side, her husband on the other. This must be devastating for Amelia. Even if it was an accident, how could they possibly move past this? Just thinking about it is nauseating. So this is how disgusting it looks when novel plots happen in real life. Passers-by flooded into the Twitch stream video, all eager to watch the drama unfold. Amelia had a decent following too, but compared to Ethan, she was more of a cautionary tale. Netizens called her love-struck and blind, with terrible judgment in men. Ethan had treated her so well before, yet she'd run away from the wedding. Now she'd married William, only for William and her uncle to end up. It was beyond words. Accident or not, after something like this, their marriage was surely ruined. This kind of stain wouldn't just disappear. Ethan, having understood the whole sequence of events, almost couldn't stop himself from applauding. Brilliant. He knew Victoria Harper was ruthless, but he hadn't expected her to be this ruthless. It exceeded his expectations. Even he couldn't have dreamed up something so disgusting. Victoria Harper looked at him expectantly, seeking praise, her eyes sparkling. Well, wasn't that a good show? Brilliant. Beautifully done. This was the proper way to deal with enemies. Utterly humiliate them, leave them mentally exhausted and powerless to retaliate. Victoria Harper had clearly done her homework to take down the Harper family. One moment, the Twitch stream video of Victor Harper and William was spreading. The next, news about him keeping escorts on the side was leaked to TMZ, by his own wife, no less. The evidence was irrefutable. Affected by the public outcry, Harper Enterprises' stock plummeted. William wasn't faring any better. Already unpopular with the general public, his fan base nosedived. He had more anti-fans than actual fans now, becoming a disgraced celebrity facing boycotts. After the Johnson Group went bankrupt, his $1.5 billion debt as the legal representative, previously suppressed because of the Harper Enterprises connection, also became widely known. William tried to shirk responsibility, claiming he wasn't involved in operations when he was the legal representative. Unfortunately, netizens weren't so easily fooled. You claim you weren't involved? Then why did Richard Johnson invest $5 million in a TV series with you as the lead? Did you really think pecan pie falls from the sky, letting you reap all the benefits without consequences? If you want the rewards, you have to accept the risks. It took security personnel over 2 hours to finally disperse the crowd at the door. Victor Harper, wrapped in a bedsheet, looked pale and ashen. William had hastily put on his clothes, but all the buttons were done up wrong. Benjamin Harper's face was dark, looking like he could barely breathe. He took 2 peppermint oil capsules, then sat down on a chair, pale and panting heavily, his head throbbing. Benjamin Harper knew a little about Victor Harper's proclivities, but he never thought he'd be so unrestrained as to cause such a scandal at such an important event. Benjamin Harper asked in a low, grave voice, "What exactly happened?" Victor Harper, sweating profusely, hastily explained, "Brother-in-law, I was drunk last night, not thinking clearly. I don't know why William was in my room in my bed. I thought he was a gift from friend." His voice trailed off as he saw Benjamin Harper's grim expression. He quickly turned to Amelia. "Amelia, you know what kind of person your uncle is. Why would I ever go after your man? You have to believe me. Last night was just an accident. Nothing happened between us. Nothing happened. Amelia sneered coldly. Look at the state of both of you. Does that look like nothing happened? I'm not some blind fool. You're both absolutely disgusting. Everything that happened today felt like a slap in the face to her. Everything she had hoped for fell apart, and not only did it not come true, it backfired on her tenfold, leaving her devastated and disgusted. Amelia kept pinching herself, trying to stay conscious. Victor was getting annoyed. Niece, I told you it was just an accident. Why are you still making a scene? And this is my room. The one at fault is William. And you? Why weren't you with him last night? Aren't you two married? If you were together, none of this would have happened. Amelia, I've already done more than enough for you as your uncle. Haven't I always had your best interest in mind? You need to speak with a clear conscience. Enough arguing. Benjamin Harper pinched the bridge of his nose. What matters now is finding a way to deal with this. The news has already gotten out. Brother-in-law, you have to believe me. My son-in-law and I were both set up. Someone must have drugged me last night, he said, barely holding on to reason. No matter how out of control he might be, he wouldn't have lost control like that in such an important setting. A drunk man can't even stay up, but both he and William were acting strangely last night. Victor asked, and those reporters this morning, where the hell did they come from? Benjamin Harper already suspected this was a setup. His gut told him either Victoria Harper or Ethan was behind it, if not both. Benjamin said, the reporters claimed they were following a tip about the CEO of Yang Group. As for why they showed up here, someone gave them directions. You know how people are, see a crowd, and they just have to check it out. Benjamin had been feeling uneasy for days. Whenever he hoped for good news, nothing came. But bad things? Every single one hit the mark. He said, call Mr. Joe. Ask him about Victoria. She wasn't with him last night. Amelia cut in. Benjamin froze. Then who was she with? Ethan. What? Why would she be with Ethan? I clearly saw her in Mr. Joe's room last night. She took so much medication. Victor suddenly realized something. How do you know that? Amelia didn't want to answer, but faced with their suspicious gazes, she forced herself to speak. Because I saw her this morning. I saw Victoria Harper walk out of Ethan's room. What floor were they on? The 8th. And how did you see them on the 8th floor? Benjamin Harper knew his daughter too well and immediately caught the detail. You already knew Ethan was staying at the Rosewood Grand Hotel, didn't you? Amelia pressed her lips together and said nothing. Benjamin was furious. Since you knew, why didn't you tell us? What were you thinking, Amelia? You knew Ethan was our enemy, that he holds a grudge against this family, and you still let him stay right under our noses? Were you just waiting for him to stir up trouble? Victor suddenly snapped to the truth. Brother-in-law, last night was a trap set by Ethan and Victoria Harper. Call Mr. Joe, Benjamin ordered. Victor took a deep breath to calm himself and dialed the number. It rang for a while before the other end picked up. Mr. Joe, did you sleep well last night? Not bad, came in different reply. Victor's heart sank. And Victoria? Mr. Lou, I think you've misunderstood. Miss Victoria Harper is my friend. I respect and admire her greatly. Misunderstood? Victor had dropped enough hints last night, and Mr. Joe had seemed very interested. He'd even given him a knowing look. As a fellow man, Victor was sure his signals had been clear. But now he didn't dare say anything more, just try to probe cautiously. And our cooperation. There won't be one. Our values don't align. Also, I absolutely despise people who are immoral, vulgar, disrespectful to women, and bring shame to the industry. With that, Mr. Joe hung up. The phone in Victor's hand suddenly felt like a burning brick. He fumbled and dropped it. His face went completely pale. Brother-in-law, Mr. Joe's in on it with them. We've been played. Benjamin Harper had expected this outcome, but hearing it still made him cough up a mouthful of blood. Dad! Amelia quickly caught him. Benjamin gripped her wrist tightly, not even knowing who to blame anymore. In the end, it all came back to himself. He had known Victor was unreliable, so why had he trusted him? Why hadn't he been more careful? There had been so many red flags. Victor tried to recover. Don't be mad, brother-in-law. I'll check the security footage right away. As long as we can prove they drugged me, we can report it to the police. Benjamin wiped the blood from his lips, voice hoarse. You think they didn't already plan for that? Sure enough, when Victor sent someone to check the hotel surveillance footage, they were told it had been hacked, and the system had crashed. Nothing was recorded. At the same time, Victor saw the online news exposing his affairs with escorts. People were coming forward claiming he had repeatedly forced men into sexual acts, describing his personal life as chaotic. Rumors about him liking men had circulated online before. Most brushed it off as a joke. But now, with Twitch streams and hard evidence surfacing, the rumors were confirmed. Public opinion had never favored Victor. Now, it turned into full-blown outrage. People wanted him out, and Harper Enterprises was being dragged down with him. His phone, still on the ground, kept ringing, calls from business partners and shareholders demanding answers. Victor was out of ideas. He had tried to be clever and ended up losing everything. He couldn't even take care of himself, let alone save the company. All he could do now was place his hopes on Benjamin Harper. He collapsed to his knees, sobbing, "Brother-in-law, you're the only one who can help me now. Please don't abandon me. I did all this for you. Get out." Benjamin Harper clenched his jaw. With Amelia's help, he stood back up. This wasn't over. It was just the beginning, like a carefully arranged line of dominoes. One piece had fallen and would bring down the next, and the next, until they all collapsed. "You caused this mess, you clean it up. What help can I give you? Do you expect me to kneel and beg for forgiveness on your behalf? You claim what happened with William was an accident, but what about everything else? The victims are already coming forward. Even your wife has come out publicly to accuse you. I think it's time you spent some time reflecting at Springfield Correctional Facility. And you." Benjamin Harper's eyes narrowed as he turned to William, his gaze murderous. "This marriage ends now." William had tried to fade into the background, hoping to be forgotten. But now, with Benjamin pointing at him, he had no choice but to face the music. "Amelia, you really want a divorce? Didn't you say that no matter what happened, you'd stand by me? None of this was my fault. I'm a victim too. If you hadn't brought me here, none of this would have happened. Now that things have gone wrong, how can you just abandon me? Since we got married, I've never done anything to betray you." It was true William hadn't intentionally wronged her. What happened between him and her uncle wasn't his fault. Just as he said, he was the victim. She shouldn't be disgusted by him, yet she truly couldn't continue this marriage. Now, whenever she saw William, her mind would reflexively conjure the image of him and her uncle in bed. It was too filthy. She couldn't suppress her nausea. "But I can't get past this. I can't face you." William cut her off, his eyes blazing with fury. "Amelia, if you had gone through something like this, I would never abandon you. You know damn well it wasn't my fault, yet you still look at me with such disgust? What right do you have?" He seemed to realize salvaging the marriage was unlikely. William lost his composure, words tumbling out recklessly. "You went looking for Ethan this morning, didn't you? You can't let him go, can you? Did you want to take him to see Victoria? Did you think Ethan, like you, would just find Victoria disgusting and abandon her if he saw her harm?" William had struck Amelia's darkest, ugliest core. No one understood her better than him. Amelia was more hypocritical than anyone, but refused to admit it. She had wanted to divorce him long before this. This incident had merely given her a convenient excuse, a suitable reason to ask for a divorce. Realizing this, a mocking expression spread across William's face. Amelia's face stiffened. "William, what nonsense are you talking? You know perfectly well whether I'm talking nonsense or not. Otherwise, explain why you saw Ethan yesterday and didn't tell us. Isn't it because your heart was stirring? You couldn't let go of me when you were with Ethan, and now you can't forget Ethan when you're with me. You want everything. Amelia, don't you think you're selfish and greedy? I could have had a smooth, peaceful life, but now, you've ruined me." William screamed himself hoarse, his eyes filled with loathing. If he had known it would come to this, he never would have married Amelia, ending up cuckolded for no good reason. A selfish woman like Amelia didn't deserve to be cherished. What right did Amelia have to be disgusted by him? She was the disgusting one, so filthy and vile inside. No wonder Ethan broke off the engagement and went for your younger aunt, he thought, and the words slipped out. They hit hard, like a blow striking her soul from afar. William issued his ultimatum. "If you divorce me, I'll kill myself. I'll jump from right here. The reporters downstairs haven't left yet. Let them see how you drove a victim to his death." Victor glanced nervously at William, afraid he might actually try to climb out the window. It was surprising to hear William say such things. These words might frighten Amelia, but they meant nothing to Benjamin Harper. Benjamin Harper patted Amelia's hand, both soothingly and as a reminder. His eyes were sharp, his tone pure mockery. "Then jump. Open the window right now and jump. We won't stop you. If you think this floor isn't high enough for a good jump, feel free to go up to the 30th. William was cowardly at heart. Benjamin didn't believe he'd actually jump. He'd threatened suicide to scare Amelia, make her feel guilty, and hopefully get her to back down. Making a scene with tears and threats wasn't exclusive to women. The difference was men were better at exploiting women's tendency towards soft-heartedness. Since Amelia couldn't bring herself to be ruthless, he would have to do it. He didn't believe William would really jump. "So what if you jump? You'd be doing it yourself. We wouldn't be pushing you. Once you're dead, You're just a handful of ashes. Makes things simpler. I'll tell the public you killed yourself because you couldn't handle your debts. As for what happened with Amelia's uncle, it was an accident. No one has proof. Once you're dead, the truth is whatever the living decide it is. I could easily spin it that you seduced him. After all, this is Amelia's uncle's private lounge. When it came to ruthlessness, Benjamin Harper took the crown. Anything that could be solved with money wasn't really a problem. Benjamin Harper looked at William as if observing a rotting corpse, mocking his pathetic overreach, wishing he could just shove him out the window right then and there. William was terrified by his gaze, a chill running through him. Clenching his fists couldn't stop the cold sweat pooling in his palms. Benjamin Harper sneered. Compared to Ethan, William wasn't even in the same league. He wasn't as smart, nowhere near as ruthless or cruel. Just a pathetic simp. Daring to challenge him? He really had a death wish. Benjamin Harper stood up and took a step forward, advancing on William as if wielding a knife. He ordered someone to open the window, then pushed William towards it, pressing him against the frame. William cried out in fear, his earlier bravado gone, pure terror filling his eyes. "Uncle Hayes!" "Dad!" Amelia and Victor spoke simultaneously, both afraid Benjamin Harper would actually harm William. If William died here today, it would cause significant trouble. "Go on, jump. Let go and jump." Still feeling brave enough to die, Benjamin Harper patted his head menacingly. "I don't dare. I don't dare anymore." William squeezed his eyes shut, terrified. His upper body was nearly halfway out the window. This was the 6th floor. Even if he survived, he'd be crippled. "Benjamin Harper, let him go." The bodyguard released his grip, and William collapsed bonelessly onto the floor. Benjamin Harper stood over him. "Sign the divorce papers, and I'll give you $5 million. A month after the divorce is finalized, I can arrange to send you somewhere safe. The people after you for debts or accountability won't find you. You can live out the rest of your life in peace." This wasn't just $5 million. An ordinary person could live comfortably off the interest alone. William had no job and no prospects, yet Benjamin Harper was offering him this sum, all for Amelia's sake. But to William, $5 million was far too little, a pittance compared to the vast Harper enterprises. He could have had it all, and now he was being fobbed off with scraps. How could he accept that? William turned his gaze back to Amelia. Amelia. He certainly knew how to adapt. Just moments ago, he was cursing Amelia for being selfish and greedy, and now he was calling her name like a pleading dog. Benjamin Harper remained silent, simply waiting for Amelia's response. If Amelia chose to remain entangled with William, he would immediately post an official notice disowning her, cutting her off without assent. Amelia's mind felt tight, like a marionette being pulled along step by step. "William, let's just part amicably. Let's pretend we were never married. Take the $5 million. Find someone who truly loves you. I've wronged you in this life." William's voice turned incredibly hoarse. "You're right. You did wrong me, Amelia. Like I said, someone like you will never find true love. If I hadn't been with you, I wouldn't have ended up like this. You've ruined my life. You owe me." One needs to know when to cut their losses. Since he couldn't salvage the marriage, he'd at least make sure Amelia carried the weight of her guilt towards him. It might be useful for extracting more from her later. William didn't yell. His voice was calm. Amelia felt a painful twist in her chest. She couldn't bear to meet William's eyes, filled with disappointment. All she could do was mutter, "I'm sorry," over and over again. After everything that had happened in a single day, her mind felt like it had short-circuited. She was like a frightened bunny, curling up into herself whenever something became too much to face. It wasn't until Benjamin Harper asked someone to print out the divorce papers that things moved forward. He'd already had the documents prepared. His lawyer had drafted them a while ago, and they'd been sitting in his inbox ever since. Printing them took barely a minute. The terms were clearly laid out in black and white. William was no stranger to contracts, and had no problem understanding the legal jargon. "If you're not sure, send it to a lawyer you trust," Benjamin said. "You've got 2 hours. Once you're ready, sign it." William didn't fully trust Benjamin Harper. Facing an old fox like him, it made sense to be cautious. Right in front of everyone, he made a call and sent the agreement out for review. The contract was simple. William had signed a prenup, so there was no shared marital property. The $5 million Benjamin Harper was offering was already generous. As Benjamin sat sipping water, he kept his eyes on William. If William stalled too long and tested his patience, that $5 million might suddenly become a much smaller number. William held the pen. "I have one request. For the next month, I want to stay at Harper Enterprises. It's safer there." It made sense. After the Johnson family went bankrupt, people looking to collect their debts couldn't find Richard Johnson, so they came after William. Some of them weren't exactly civilized. Harper Enterprises was the safest place for him now. The 1-month cooling-off period before the divorce became official might offer a chance, however slim, that Amelia would change her mind. But that seemed unlikely. Benjamin Harper had a tight grip on her. Unless Benjamin Harper died. Amelia's heart wavered. William's words had struck a chord, and guilt stirred within her. Compared to Ethan, she had been much more forgiving and kind to William. She was beginning to understand what it really meant to treat someone well. If she ever had a second chance with Ethan, she would be even better to him than she had been to William, if he'd give her that chance. "Dad," she said, "I'll go with William to finalize the divorce in a month." She was asking for Benjamin Harper's approval. It was such a small request that Amelia didn't think it would matter. It felt like a way to ease her guilt. Maybe she'd feel less ashamed if she granted William this small gesture. Benjamin Harper didn't think William could cause much trouble under his nose anyway. "Fine," he said. William signed first. Then it was Amelia's turn. Unlike William's hesitation, she didn't pause for even a second. She signed each page quickly. And just like that, with the red seals side by side, their 1-month marriage came to an end. William had become a scandal overnight. His talent agency was eager to cut ties. His agent couldn't reach him by phone, so they just sent a message. The company would be distancing itself. In other words, he was being blacklisted. All his social media accounts were taken down. The agency had stakes in Harper Enterprises, and William already had more debt than he could ever repay. Pursuing him was pointless. Better to earn some goodwill with the Harpers. With the divorce wrapped up, Benjamin Harper made another call and immediately scheduled an emergency board meeting. He left Rosewood Grand Hotel and headed straight to Harper Tower. Victor had originally left the hotel with him, but before they even got to the car, a group of uniformed police officers arrived and took Victor away. Panicked, Victor shouted, pleading for Benjamin to help him. Benjamin's dry lips parted slightly, but he didn't say a word. He just stood there and watched as Victor was forced into the police cruiser. It all happened too fast. Benjamin looked up at the sky. At some point, thick clouds had gathered overhead. The air felt heavy and oppressive. Dull thunder rumbled in the distance. A storm was coming. Benjamin Harper wasn't unwilling to help Victor. He simply couldn't. If the charges stuck, Victor was facing years in prison. That wasn't even the worst part. The real threat was to Harper Enterprises. The company's stock had been crashing and was beyond saving. On top of that, Benjamin had to stay alert. Who knew what other dirt Victoria Harper might be holding on to? He had always underestimated Victoria and Ethan, but now just thinking about them made his skin crawl. They were like venomous snakes, lurking in the shadows, waiting to strike. First the Johnsons, now the Harpers, both century-old family empires crumbling in the span of just 2 or 3 months. Benjamin felt the pressure closing in. Those two snakes were getting closer, ready to strike at any moment. He barely had the strength to protect himself. Back at Harper Tower, he immediately called the board to order and began discussing crisis management. He couldn't understand how such a massive corporation couldn't handle Victoria and Ethan. Real estate losses needed plugging. Just last night, he'd hoped to use Victor to build a connection with the Yan Group. But Victor had failed miserably and offended them instead. Benjamin personally reached out, only to be met with a single, brutal response. Our boss said, "We don't do business with Harper's son-in-law." That one sentence shut the door in his face. He had no choice but to consider the last resort, the one he'd been avoiding. Selling the land in Westbrook District was now inevitable. Meanwhile, Amelia and William sat in the Harper limousine on their way back to Harper Enterprises. Neither spoke the entire ride. William sat in the front passenger seat, staring out the window, trying to figure out what to do next. As they approached the Victorian house, a figure on the sidewalk caught William's eye. His whole body tensed. It was Sophia. She was standing by the roadside, pushing a stroller. She glanced in the direction of the car, and, just for a second, their eyes met. Why was Sophia here? Was she here to threaten him? But what could she possibly want? He had nothing left, no money, no status. Did she expect him to take responsibility for her now? If she leaked news of the baby to TMZ, he might not even get the $5 million. Benjamin Harper might break his legs. He couldn't let that happen. Fear and anxiety twisted his stomach into knots. William hunched over, clenching his right fist against his abdomen, his face pale and sweating. When they arrived, the driver stepped out to open the door for Amelia. William still hadn't moved. She knocked on the window, her voice cold. "We're here." Snapping out of it, William opened the door with trembling hands. As he stepped out, he stumbled and nearly fell. "What's wrong with you?" "Nothing," he replied. "I was just thinking, how do we end up like this?" He had already decided on his next move. Everything I said at the Rosewood Grand Hotel, I didn't mean it. I was just angry. Don't take it to heart.